Good afternoon, good day, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Knowledge and Relationships present Rico and R'Shaun versus the Red Pill Cultists. This will be the last in this series. So hopefully, you guys have had something that you had to take away from our multiple question and answer sessions. We would definitely appreciate a lot of the love and the feedback. Before we get started, I did want to say hello to Rico. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great tonight, brother. Glad to be here with you.
Thank you also again to Knowledge and Relationships crew. You will know all your names. If I try it again like I did last time, I'm going to forget some. So I'm not even going to try it, but thank you, M3, Mr. Best, Queen, First Lady Tammy. You know, there's a whole list, whole crew. Y'all run deep, and it'll be a 501 fast break if I mess up all the names. So I'm going to stop right there. But I just want to show love to anybody in the chat. We did see Mr. Stanley Joseph pop in. So I wanted to thank you, Stan Joseph. I'm sure you might be popping up a little bit later. Ill Doctrine in the chat. Salute to you. Thank you for being here. We wanted to also, Rico, did you have any opening statements?
No, nothing more than what you haven't already covered. Just to say thank you to all the supporters and the guys in the chat and people who have come with us on our initial journey. As you know, we go forward, trying to have some sensible, open-minded, and thoughtful discussions about things that matter to us in the community. And I hope that over these past 3 streams, including tonight, that I imparted something at least to make you think. And, as much as I've even gotten with the feedback from the people who have come up and comments in the chat that continue to have me to think more about these topics. But other than that, it's been great. I love it. I'm looking forward to the next thing that we can come up and talk about. And I hope we're talking about it in a way that it encourages further conversations.
Absolutely, Rico. And I want to just apologize in advance for anybody if I have connection issues tonight. I'm on Spectrum and I'm locked where I'm at, and I can't switch up provider. So if I struggle stream out like I did the last episode, please forgive me. Shout out to Colin Mitchell. I know he's a family member of the Knowledge and Relationships crew. YouTube Conversations. Shout out to you too. Love your content. And as we get started, Rico, I know we've had a few conversations this week about some of this red pill talking points that have come up in like other streams. But what's something that we maybe haven't touched upon that you wanted to speak on? Like I know we haven't really talked about the Moynihan report. I know that's another a little touchy subject with you. But I just wanted to like just give an overview, like things we've talked about real quick. I mean, things that are just sticking under our craw.
Well, like I said, obviously, like you said, as you pointed out to the Moynihan report, which to be honest with you, I'm not even against or for. I just think, it's problematic. I don't think there's anything wrong with the report and how it's constructed and the data that's in the report. I think the interpretation of the report is very much misused when people take bits and pieces out of it and fit it to their narrative to paint a particular, and in particular, the Black community, because that's what the report was about. It was a discussion of the Black community and what was the breakdown of the Black community and the causes in 1965, so 30, 40 years ago. And so many people on both sides, primarily I think more on the right, have misused it. So that's why I don't have a problem with the report as much as I have a problem with the misapplication of the report. And one other thing that has sort of like stuck out to me is, as I've, been in these YouTube streets, I'm on like 70, 75 different channels. It's just for me, as of late, it's just seeing some of the, what I think we have, as much as we as a community collectively are coming together, trying to come up with solutions and ideas to fix our problems. Some of our problems is internal. We need to start looking within our community, people that are not for us and for our best interest, or even allowing outsiders in our community who are not for our best interest. That's something I think we have to be very careful with. Far too often, we either through invitation or just, apathy, we allow people to come into our community that don't have our community's best interest. And then they will get within our community and they will bring a level of cancer or toxicity that's very harmful. So if you find yourself in a space, I think I would say this to every brother and sister out there. If you find yourself in a space that you're fighting with someone, even a person of our community, but especially a person not of our community, and you find yourself fighting them to dispel a lot of negative narratives and tropes and innuendos about us, know that that person is not for our community. Know that they don't have the thoughtfulness or the forethought or the compassion or empathy to be an ally. I'm an ally of many communities that's not of the Black community. But when I go to those spaces, I go in those spaces with respect, humility. I don't lead anything. I don't speak on anything. I'm there to learn. I'm there to support them in any way I can. And I am not there to cause further harm, damage, or trauma to a community that's already suffering from it. So I would ask us all to look at each other, look in our own individual spaces, and become more wiser about it. It's 2022. We just got to stop kicking the doors open, letting everybody in, coming in and taking a crap on our living room and leaving. So that's my thought that sort of like has kind of affected me most recently.
And I know something I've been dealing with this week specifically that's kind of in line with what you're talking about, because it's kind of like protecting our image, like protecting ourselves from outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
But what I felt was like even on the inside, we need to protect ourselves. A lot of people in the red pill community specifically have had a lot of negative things to say. We talked about how people in the community talked about women. People from the women's space talk about men.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to be more thoughtful in this public shaming and bashing, because I know what you talked about on another show, one of our streams for sure, but I saw you on another show on another platform. You talked about this is just bashing, because it's not accountability, because you have no authority over these people. You can't do anything. So if you're just constantly pointing out things that they already know, or even if they don't know, because that was a pushback on you. They don't know. Even if they don't know, you're not really doing anything, because if they don't know from their lived experience, they're not going to know from you telling them. They're choosing to be oblivious. Really quickly, I wanted to shout out Mrs. Mary. I know I've seen you in all of the streams so far, so thank you for being here and supporting us. I really do appreciate that. And if we can support you back in any way, if you have a channel, please let us know so we can go and subscribe. Big Bad Bull, thank you for stopping by. I see you in the YouTube streams all the time too. So again, thank you for being here. And to get back to what we were here to do real quickly is question number 1. We did not, wait, sorry. I think we might have those loaded up. I had made a mistake earlier, so they weren't there, but they're there now. Are men and women dating to achieve the things they say they desire, Rico?
Well, it's just a funny question, because I actually I was having a conversation with a lady friend. I'm married, she's married, so I don't, we were talking about it, and we were talking about me being married, and it spilled over to another thing. But I always it's hard for me, because pretty much the first time I got married, I was like 19, 20 years old. So and I mean, I've always been into the thought of wedded bliss. I just always have. Came up with a single mother. I don't know why it got, maybe because I came up without a father. So that was always a big thing to me. But now, and I've started hearing people say it, that, female women are not as interested in marriage anymore, because they don't see the benefit. I know I got a couple of sons that say they never want to get married. And it's hard for me to believe that. I'm like, oh, this is just a one-off, it's an anomaly. But I'm thinking now more so probably half the population is dating not to get married, and maybe 3/4 of the population within our community. And it's not to say that I think that they don't want to have loving relationships. People have seemed to take in this belief that, we said it in my day, but now I'm like, they're really taking it to heart. Oh, it's just a piece of paper. They don't seem to care about the benefits of marriage, whether it's tax benefit, they believe they can do the financial building without the marriage. And I can't really say you can't, but if something happened to one of them, well, that's a whole nother ball of wax and things of that nature. it's just so many things they seem to be just dismissing that it, and I don't want to see a bunch of bad marriages either. So that's where I find myself getting a little torn because I'm like, well, I push marriages, but come on, I'm the product of 2 failed marriages. Thank God I'm in a 3rd one now. So I'm like, I know that you can have bad marriages where 2 people don't come together and they're just not the right pairing, or people jump into marriage without doing the work. I would like to see more people do the work. I like to see more people because I do think most people should be married. But I honestly, and the short answer is, I don't think right now that the vast majority of people, I think it depends on your age. So I think if you had a certain age demographic and you're dating, you are dating for marriage. But I would say 18 to 30, no, I just think it's sexual conquest up until that point. And then maybe after 30, they start to think about it. And it's just unfortunate. It's a change from the past.
I definitely agree with you. I don't think we are dating with intention. I don't think also we're even properly identifying what it is we want. So how can we date to achieve the things we want if we're not even acknowledging or aware of exactly what it is we want? A lot of people say they want marriage, but I know this is an old talking point, but a lot of people say they want marriage, but for men, I know it's like access to sex a lot of times, or the building of a legacy, a family. And for women, a lot of times it may be sometimes I've even had this conversation with people I was dealing with. Like a lot of people felt like they wanted a wedding. They wanted the picture, they wanted the moments. They didn't really care who the person was that's fit in that picture. Like it scratch out the guy's face. It really didn't matter which one was there. They just wanted everything else that came with it. The pretty flowers, the orchestra, whatever. That's what they were looking for. It really didn't seem like they were after a marriage, even though that's the term they would use. They were looking for those moments, those memories, those things that they looked for all their lives and were taught that they should look forward to. So I think a lot of us sometimes we build these expectations up through our youth of what we're looking for. We tell these stories again to ourselves. I'm looking for this. I'm gonna have a family. I'm gonna have a family. But when we actually get to that point, it's not really what we want. We've changed as people from our youthful desires. We've grown. We've gone to college or something. We like you talked to yourself. You had a couple of failed marriages. You've learned from that. So in your 3rd marriage, you bring a new set of skills that you learned in the failures. So you don't want the same outcome that you may have wanted prior. So your 3rd one will probably be more benefited by those changes you've made in yourself because you now more readily can see what you want and what you actually bring to the relationship. So I think a lot of people need to go through those journeys, and we're not intentional about doing that. We kind of fumble our way into growth and evolution. And I think we do need guidance. I don't think we're getting it from our parents. I know I didn't. Most of the people I know, they didn't. So a lot of people are not getting the type of guidance they need to go into healthy relationships at the same time that their bodies are ready to go into sexual relationships. And I think that's something we need to be more mindful of. Go ahead, Rico.
Well, I was going to say, I was just thinking about something too. I was like, I don't see as many positive examples of marriage today as I used to in the past. I'm right now in my mind, I'm trying to think what television show, what images, where's the imagery of positive marriage or the promotion of marriage in almost anything. Most media actually almost promote singleness. Most shows is about the even whether it's a single. We went from a point where it was single, independent men that could do whatever. The male womanizer was the thing that of a certain generation. People, oh, he's a womanizer, he's a ladies' man. And now they're promoting almost for women. Oh, she's a boss B. She's a big bad boss B. So the mentality seemed to have skewed. The imagery seems to be promoting that, and there's a much lower imagery of unionship, period, in any form, fashion, or way. So I think people are starting to grow up and they're just not seeing people paired regularly. And when I think back when I was coming up, that was a more wide, we just saw it more places. I mean, pretty much anybody that was on TV was a married couple. They just didn't even have shows about it, was whether it was the honeymooners, like I Love Lucy. These were all marriages. So no matter what the genre of, whether it was my fate, I think the first show I can never remember seeing, it was only one, was like the courtship of Eddie's father, and I think his wife died, and he was a single father raising Eddie. But all those shows showed husband and wives. So it was like, it was like that programming. And then you saw it when you went into the community. And now that's drastically gone. I don't know where you would see it other than maybe in church or the couples that you would have to personally know. And now at my age, most of my friends are married, but I'm almost 60. But I'm thinking, like, if I think back 10, 15 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, the vast majority of my friends were unmarried up until my 30, 35, had kids, this, that, and whatever, but they were unmarried. And so that's why I keep thinking, for me, I think, especially for men, you think you want to be the womanizer and the ladies' man all your life, but then obviously when you get, like when I started hitting 40, I started having a few aches and pains, slowing down, this, that, and whatever. Had been through my second divorce, and the loneliness is like, it ain't but so much womanizing you can do before you start to realize, okay, I want somebody, because this is not fun. So that's just something that just made me think of, like, just the lack of imagery.
Definitely, the lack of imagery, I think, does lead right into our next question. I know Miss Mary says she co-signed that too, about the not seeing the good, healthy examples, and people not wanting to do the work, and not wanting to do the work, and not having healthy examples. I think leads to question number 2: do we have unrealistic expectations for the opposite sex and gender? Like, or because we're not seeing it, do we then build up these false ideals that people have hard pressed to live up to? I just saw a clip from it was just in this group from the Steve Harvey show, and this lady was talking about she wanted to find a man that was the Pippin to her Jordan. So she wanted to be the boss woman. She had all these things, but she said she would make time, and I'll make time for the man. I'll fit him in somewhere in between all the things I'm doing. Like, have we tricked ourselves out of being capable to hold these relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have. But this is one of the places. Normally I'd be in here white knight and simping for the lady, but this I'm right down the middle. The unrealistic expectations is on both sides equally 100%. The men just have some of the most nonsensical ideas about women. Women have nonsensical ideas about men. We go into it knowing, as the I don't know who, I can't remember who the author is that wrote that famous book, because it was very true. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We know that. So we're already starting at a space where we don't know each other, where men really don't know women. We know what we want from a woman, but we don't know a woman. And then we put a wildly unreasonable set of expectations on what we want that woman to be, when we don't even know what it is to be a woman. And they do the same thing vice versa. They don't know men. They haven't taken the time, and they'll put a wild set of expectations on men when, so I think, and I think in the space we're in now, the problem with that is then now everybody's susceptible to these voices out there in the ether, because they don't know. Like I said, you haven't seen anything positive. You haven't really experienced it. So that's prime mental territory for whether you say a Steve Harvey or, some of the red pill speakers. So they're speaking that nonsense to, the kids that are susceptible to listen to them. Same thing, you have it on the female side. So it's like, unless these people, sometimes almost like, okay, put them on a boat, send them to an island, and turn everything off. And probably in about 6 months, when all that nonsense wash out of their brain, they'll be like, we're not that damn complicated. We just really aren't. So I think there's a lot of negative stimuli and imagery that's going into everybody's brain that's actually causing a lot of the conflict. I think we're a little bit overstimulated in thinking about what we want, and we're getting in our own damn way. We're not that complicated, but it's too much stimuli out there right now, and I think that's a big part of the problem. But that's it.
Yeah, information overload. I definitely agree with that. I want to real quick before we greet our guest, we want to shout out D Hen. Thank you for stepping into the room, and I saw you when you entered, so thank you. The Blooming Ebony, we saw you on at least I did. I saw you on a few streams. I really enjoyed your content and your conversation, so glad you're here. And Mr. Stanley Joseph, welcome to the main stage, sir.
Welcome to the basement, sir.
What's up?
We're not in the basement.
Nope, not in the basement. There's no one down there yet. How you guys doing tonight?
Well, Mr. Joseph, what you got for us, man? I'm feeling good myself. How about
Rico? The book he was talking about? The book Rico was talking about is Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus is by John Gray.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple. It was him and his wife. I think they also written The 5 Love Languages or something similar to that. And I remember in the 80s, they used to have like a full-on sell by tapes and cassette tapes and VHS tapes. And they had cruises and everything else. So spot on for what you were saying. And I just want to say, like, just because you had like 2 failed marriages, at least you got married and you married on your 3rd one, like R'Shaun said. You learned. Like my father, Lord knows, I think he's on his 10th. He still ain't learned. But I'm from the South, right? I have a friend of mine on Facebook. We're in our 40s, right? So he's like on his 4th marriage. And he posted on Facebook, he said, like, every time I get married, I feel like I'm getting closer to the one.
We ain't no quitter.
Yeah, that's what he said. Like, every time, like in the South, man, when they break up, I don't know what kind of prenup they got. They break up, they get over it. The next year, it's like a new man, a new woman they got. For me, I just call him Earl, and I call her Shirley. I don't know who they are. Because it's always somebody brand new. They get divorced, they go off, and they get married again. Here in California, man, we break up. It's like 10 years of therapy. We up here vetting people out just for a cup of coffee. We got a protection program.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Stanley, though. Then that goes to the question, because I want to know what your spin is on question number 2. Do you think in California that people are having unrealistic expectations for the opposite sex, which could be driving force for, like I told R'Shaun, I believe wholeheartedly in wedded bliss. But I also know that we tend to have, I think there's somebody for everybody, but oftentimes the wrong people keep pairing, which leads to the high rate of divorce. Because it's like, well, you do have a wife, the one you married wasn't her. You just keep picking the wrong one. It's not that you don't have a wife. The one you picked, it wasn't her. She's still out there. But then that comes from these unrealistic. I know as men, because we're visual, that's our Achilles heel. We oftentimes in dating don't take the depth, and I'm guilty of it. Ergo the 2 prior failed marriages. They
weren't failed. Like I would say, they weren't failed because it's what you needed at that time. So they're not failed marriages. Like in realistic view, they weren't failed marriages because you went ahead, sealed the deal, closed it, and got married. Now, whatever happens in between, it takes 2. So it's not all on you, right? Then you went ahead again, got married for the 2nd time. It takes 2. It didn't work out. And then you got married for the 3rd time. So for you, from your perspective, looking and probably meeting you, the question I would have for you is like, why you want to get married? Right? Because like you've done it, it must be something good about marriage, right? It has to be something good about marriage. So why you would just go from 1, 2, 3, not giving up? So that's where you're at. And I want to say, like, the first time you got married, like, which decade were you when you got married? And not making fun, like, it's serious.
No,
like, when
I
the
mean,
first time you got married?
I was like 20 years old, so it's like 37 years ago.
So that was like the 80s, or that was the 90s?
Yeah. That was the 80s. It was the 80s.
80s, right? So keep in mind,
it was
right?
like 2 years out of high school. I came out of high school in 82, so it'd be like 84.
Right. So like the images of marriage, right, was a lot different because we had good times. Like no matter rich or poor, we're in there. The Jeffersons, they were definitely poor. They stuck it in. They became rich. No matter what, we're in there, right? The Cosbys, guess what? Met you in college. We're in there. We got married. We stuck around. Got 5 kids. No matter what, me and you, right? There is a very like juxtaposition when you look at like for my generation and for the next generation after me, we have to be honest, right? Because though you got married, I can look at like, man, like I was in relationships and I didn't get married because I didn't want to get married, but I've been in long-term relationships. But man, today, there are people who have never been in a relationship, never dated, never been kissed, never have sex. There are a lot of missing steps for a lot of people because there's technology where people do have expectations, but they're not going ahead and put their best foot forward because nobody's really into dating, really. They're into dating in the sense of, I want to be stuck in this dating rotation. I want to be chased after and pursued. They don't want the result of it like, okay, you my boo now. Like they don't want that. I want you to still chase after me for 5 years, Fred. 5 years, chase after me, Fred. You know, like they want the romance. They want all that, but they don't want the settle.
Right. So do you think in that instance, they, like you said, you know, the thrill of the chase, but then the thing is while I enjoy dating, well, once you get married, well, now you got to start working. So you go from dating, now you got to do the work of the marriage. And I tell anybody, the best years of my life, I was married. The best year, I mean, when I'm not married, I have no structure. My life is a disaster on my own because I have no structure. I know inherently inside me, I was meant to be paired. Now, you know, in the previous iterations, I paired with the wrong person. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, so, I mean, I just describe them as failed marriages because in each marriage, I didn't want it to end, but it ended for whatever reason. So I just try to look at
those stages. I would never call them failures because, man, like you got into a stage that a lot of people haven't got into, period. And I want to, you know, we're talking about the image, right? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but like we have been like indoctrinated for so long. We forget like 30 years ago, when we were coming up, or even like 25 years ago, we had Sex in the City. Not blaming anything on Sex in the City, but please understand, these are grown people, and we're like being single for the rest of our lives. Sex in the City was very positive because we understood the power of being single. Single people were buying houses. Single people were going on trips, doing investments. Single people were making their own families. And that's a lot of great stuff if you're single, right? What was going on though, you didn't have the blended family in. There was no Brady Bunch, right? It was just you, just a Brady with bunches. You ain't bringing nobody in. It's just you and your own. And that's where we've been stuck at. And we have to be honest here. And it's okay because maybe for the next generation, it could be a little bit better. But for those of us who are into this stuff where we're at right now, I was gonna I journal what everything you guys talked about, but but I just want you to know, like I've been thinking about what you've been saying. I've been listening, and like, yeah, man, like you gotta look at. We're like, you know, people. Here it is, right? You say legacy, right? People want legacy, but they'd rather be a baby mama or baby daddy because guess what? I can get the same deal without marriage. Right? If I hook up with a Toni Braxton, well, you know what? I got the money. She got to take care of me. And my kids got to have similar lifestyle to what she got at her house, right? They have Jennifer Hudson and her boo. So like, nah, you can't leave me on the streets, right? I carry your legacy, right? Shacking up. I got shelter and protection. I don't need permission. I don't need marriage, right? You break up with me, I get palimony. Or common law marriage. You got to divorce me in common law marriage, so you got to pay up. I'm still getting my shelter and my protection. You die, guess what? I get the SSI now, right? Business partnership, which is something new I found out this week. Lord, I did not know these women were like helping men get into
educate us. What is that? Business partnership.
Okay, so I did not know, because now it's tax season, right? A couple of guys are putting this stuff out there, like their business partner had put them down as a dependent on the taxes, while the dude is married and she didn't know. But she's now finagles and stuff like into a relationship. I'm just like, oh my God, I didn't know this stuff even exists in business partnership.
There are grown men out there that's letting themselves, whether they're married or not, be carried as a dependent.
No, not carried as a dependent. So like you meet somebody and it's a business partnership. Like R'Shaun met somebody, she's helping with the radio stuff, the podcast, and it's solid, it's good, money is coming in, right? R'Shaun not even like, they just business partners, right? Everything is cool, everything is grand. Okay. R'Shaun about to fill out the taxes. Guess what? She put R'Shaun on her taxes as a couple.
I think
I didn't know, but there's benefits.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Can you guys think of any in any media currently in 2022 that gives us an example of a positive marriage?
I can't.
Real quick, because I wanted. Yeah. But real quick, before you answer that, Mr. Joseph, I wanted to ask that, because both of you guys, when you talked about examples, both of you went to television. Like, why are we using television for our examples of good relationships? Like, because Rico did it, Mr. Joseph, you did it. Like, why is that our standard? Like, are we so?
Rico, you want to go first? I'll go first. Like, I can tell you.
Examples.
I'll give you the example, right? Again, it shows, right? I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. My parents did not talk to me. The only thing is, don't you get no girl pregnant, I'll kill you. Don't you get no drugs, I will kill you. Don't get into no gangs, I will beat you and kill you. And if you go to jail, you get married to Bubba, don't call me. That was it. There was no, let's sit down and talk about how things are. This is what goes on in the relationship. It was like you see, you look, and then you discuss with your friends. Our parents did a horrible job. There was no discussion. Don't get me started with church. Church is like everything you do is sin. You hot. You didn't get married.
Stanley, I'll push back on one thing. And I agree, you're absolutely right. And I always do this because I think I had this conversation with R'Shaun earlier. And because of the older, yes, our parents did a horrible job. But I think we are out of line to say that, because they did the best job they could under the circumstances. That we are the descendants of Black people. And if we can think of the struggles we go through now, it don't fucking compare to what your mother went through or your father went through.
Which is true, but you know what? My father didn't go no struggle, because my father had plenty of girlfriends.
No, I'm talking about
he could have spent a little bit, 5 minutes.
Right. but I'm just saying, I always think of my parents and the struggle they went through in society, because America was pretty fucked up back in the day.
And it still is now, right?
Yeah, but it was, so as bad as it is now, it was 10 times worse for people who looked like us. And I would get mad at my mother, and I was like, a Black woman, Jim Crow, I can't. And I just always thought back on it. I was like, you could have did better, mama, but I still love you because I know you had it tough. And I just always I want every person of color, especially during our generation, to say, think back on it and give your parents some grace. And my mother was a single baby mama with 5 kids with 4 baby daddies. But I'm like, hell, she did the best she could do. It wasn't good enough.
But I gotta answer R'Shaun's question and be honest, right? The person who taught me sex, you ready for it? Ray Victory, Shawn Michaels, Mr. Marcus, Jake Steve.
Stop it.
Who taught me sex? I'm gonna like, let's keep it 100, right? Well, you could have sat down and talked to me because your talk about sex is you're gonna kick me out the house. I'm gonna be homeless.
But don't look
at 15. I'm finding. Hold on. I'm finding ebony and luscious and passion up in the videotapes and magazines up in that little dress, in that little private box, right? And then on top of that, I'm looking at my parents were not affectionate, right? And again, this with TV, because like the computer, I'm watching Heart to Heart, and I was like, that's what I want. I want to have a girlfriend or wife that's gonna be affectionate. Because I'm looking at my parents, I don't know how they made me. Did they just look at each other, just a cold stare, and boop, I'm here? Because
but that was what it was. But that's good. So, but at the end of the day, before we go to question number 3, you want to do any shout outs for the chat, R'Shaun? Stick around.
Real quick. I saw Sheree B. Chicago. Thank you for being here. I definitely enjoyed the stream the other night. I did go back and catch that replay. So I enjoyed the stream. So thank you for showing up for us.
Tell her hit the link.
And we had someone else. You said, what was that, Rico?
Tell Sheree to hit the link.
And we had She Stole My Thunder. Thank you for showing up as well. Glad to see you. The time I saw you was over at J Pam's channel. So glad to see you over here, Knowledge and Relationships. And I hope you enjoy what we're talking about. I want to piggyback on the question you guys are talking about because I've heard a couple of other conversations this week about influences or digital manipulation, like programming. How much, like we talked about example, and you talked about sex you learned from, videos and things you found in the cupboard,
magazines.
How much of this stuff, honestly, is teaching us and our children? How much of YouTube? How much is Blue's Clues? How much are all these different forms of media training
all of it? All of
so
it.
You don't
think, why? This is why I put out Sex and the City. This is why I'm gonna put out Sex and the City. All right, so you ready for it? I thought, because I watched Different Worlds since the 7th grade, right? I thought that I was gonna find the love of my life in college. That was my goal. I'm gonna go to college. I don't know how I'm gonna pay for it. I don't want to be in Miami. I don't want to marry no high school sweetheart. I gotta leave, and I'm going to go to college and get married. So I went to college. Man, I was a simp. It was all bad, crying, boys men tapes, the whole 9. I'm going. I'm just waiting to excel the CD. I went through 5 of those CDs. It's like my heart broken, everything, right? Graduate college, I'm depressed. I'm like, I ain't gonna get my girlfriend, I ain't gonna get married, none of that. Until a white girl sat down with me, I need you to watch Sex and the City, understand women. And she made me watch it, and then we sat down and we went through each season. And she's like, we don't want to get married. We just want you for sex. And we want you to be arm candy. And that's your role. I don't want you for nothing else. And when I did that, my dating life was a lot better because it was like, and mind you, by then I'm 25. It was like, nope, we don't want you for no marriage. Don't talk about no marriage. We're also trying to figure out our own lives. We don't want you for partnerships. So forget that part. I tell you what I need, you need to follow through. Because when you watch Sex and the City, it was one-sided because you didn't see so much what the guys were thinking, what the guys had to overcome. It was much more all about the women. And they're like, you see what he did, then you need to do this. You see what's going on here, this is what you're doing, you learn from this. You see what happens when you act like this, women are more attracted to you.
But
so,
let me tell you this. Go ahead. But I'm gonna say this. But see now, and I just thought about something that just slices right into the question about the unrealistic expectations. Because to me, the unrealistic expectations of the opposite gender, and I'm just gonna put it on the female side of the ledger right now, because I don't know why this question doesn't apply to the male side of the ledger. Because the big fight or the big thing in the red pill streets is this traditional modern, right? All that weight gets dumped on the female side. Modern women, traditional, or we want traditional women, modern women, blah, blah, blah. But no one ever says that about the men. So are all the men modern or all the men traditional? What is it? It's like
modern.
it's like there's nothing there. But we look over at the women's side and we see, oh, these women are modern, these women are traditional. And it seems like the delineation is, well, if they're submissive, they're traditional. If they're not, they're modern, which is just nonsense within itself. So I'm like, well, are all men traditional or all men modern? Because I would not think, what is a modern man going to do with a traditional woman? What's But so my question is, or my thought process is, I don't get the concept of looking for traditional. We're in a modern world, modern time. So as you described Sex in the City, if women have been programmed to want to live life single because they want their independence, they want their freedom. We've talked about how that label always gets placed on sisters, and I keep telling them, all women are wanting to be independent, not just Black women, white women, Latino women, Asian women, especially in the westernized world. They're not going back to being dominated, controlled, or subjugated. I don't see why that's a good deal for them anyway. So if that is the programming, then as men, we better get with the program and understand that that's where they're going, whether we go with them or not. And if you want a woman, you're going to have to accept that the vast majority of women in the Western world, that's their mindset. And like I said, if they come up to you, I don't want to get married, I just want the arm candy, I want the sex, that might be your new modern, if that's what you have to accept, unless you're lucky enough to get one that want to be, and maybe just getting married will be considered traditional. Not submitting, just deciding will be the new traditional, rather than her. I could see a woman saying, hey, I want 3 boyfriends. That's my new future. I don't know. I'm just thinking out there. And the last thing I was saying is, when you asked about the programming, oh Lord, when you look at it at the level of the programming of the kids, R'Shaun, the programming has started even with us as the adults and the parents. So we can't break our children from the programming because we can't break ourselves from the programming. I'm like, the only way I can see getting my kids or grandkids out of it is we got to go up in a cabin somewhere up in the fucking mountains for the next 20 years and be removed from all this overload, information, stimuli, internet, television. So now it's not even television anymore, R'Shaun. You know what it is? This little stupid thing we staring at now. So you don't have to have a television in your house. They found another way to get in. Look, half the households got them little damn talking boxes all over your house. That Siri,
Amazon Echo, Alexa. You can't hit on Alexa. That's my boo. She takes care of me.
And that's all I'm saying. The information overload stimuli coming from everywhere. That yes, Big Brother is real. He's real. There's just not algorithms on the internet. There are algorithms going through they took the information out of our head and they're feeding it back to us on a loop. And there's the puppet master. I don't know who he is. I'm just as hooked as you are and everybody else. But I think that does have an effect with some of the stuff going on. And we could be all day with this, but we're gonna get to the next question. I
want to get to that point. R'Shaun, do you want to answer that, or you want me to go first?
You go first, because I'm gonna tie my answer in question number 3.
Okay, so what was mentioned before, where people are exchanging what marriage is and making exchanges, like what marriage brings you security. The new thing right now, they push in polyamorous relationships, which is more female focused, where the woman can have 4 or 5 husbands, right? This, again, forget the security of marriage. I have the security of polyamory, polyamory, whatever we call it. I don't know how to pronounce it. I can't do it. But, but I was going to say, like, where we at now, I'll say conditional manhood, because happy wife, happy life is still there. It's on a condition. That's my manhood. If I don't satisfy you, it's a condition, right? It's never been about me. When you even look at what's been going on, men been so dumbed down, and it's like, wait a minute, we can't think, we can't say anything. It's kind of like where feminism raised women up, men have been like Homer Simpsons, and like guys who grew up in that, just like, wait a minute, I gotta like, what's going on here? Because now men been reading books and thinking, like, hey, I gotta like, hey, what's this not right, right? Now the men are becoming more feminist or masculine in their own selves, right? But men are like, this is not okay. Men do have a choice. And I'm not gonna sit down and tell anybody, I'm not a child of the 50s or 60s, and I'm sorry, when it comes to time machines and being black, I never want to go to the past. What goes in the past, I don't want to go, I'm black. It's not gonna be good for me either way. So going back in the past, I don't care. It's a no, thank you, right? So men do have options, just like white men, they don't date American women. You can go to another country and date someone there and get married and have children, because the falsehood of just saying like, hey, when you get married, just hold on for me. I'm with you, my brother. The falsehood of like men are going to be dominating in a traditional marriage. We really haven't been brought up in a traditional marriage, period. We don't know what that looks like. And even when it was traditional, right? I could think of one TV show, and I'm going to TV, like Leave It to Beaver, right? Like that woman, she literally ran the whole family. She knew how to do it. She was very smart. Like Mrs. Cleaver wasn't no punk. She was like, yeah, Ward, okay. All right, Beaver, go ahead and go do the dishes. Now, Ward, what's going on here? Like she knew how to run. She was she was in a house full of men, and she knew how to like maneuver everything around. So it's not like submission in the sense of like, hey, you're going to be pushed and punished, but in a relationship, both parties are submissive. Because when I'm with my girl, like I'm not going out there and cheat, because a woman out there could like, well, you're not a man. You're not a man if you don't let her get away from this good yum yum. You don't want this yum yum? My yum yum could make you. But like, what kind of man are you? Come on, get this. She should know what time it is, right? But like, like as men, we also get so much stuff too. But back to what you said, number one, right? Nobody talked to us about marriage. No one, I could say as a man, when marriage is talked about, I always hear about marriage. Marriage is hard. Marriage is not easy. Marriage is full of work. Like, can you imagine you selling me a car? What you gonna tell me? Driving this car is hard. Driving this car is not easy. Driving this car is a lot of work. You're not gonna sell me that car. I don't want that. You can't send me no marriage. It's like you giving me a steak on a plate of garbage. Like, come on, man. Yeah. You cannot tell me.
Well, let me tell you this, though. You're absolutely right. And I love your point where you said, like, it's about selflessness. Because that's what I promote. I don't preach, submissiveness. I preach selflessness. I said, like, you should be selfless to your spouse. Your spouse should be selfless to you. You guys are both in service of each other. It's a wonderful relationship. The only thing that I wanted to specifically not even push back on, but I want to put out the truth is that I don't want people to push this narrative, especially when they talk about our sisters in particular, but even against all Western women, but they specifically, it's crazy in our community where they're like threatening Black women that act right or they're going to go overseas and get another woman. And I tell her ass to go ahead. They're going to be surprised at what they get.
You know who came up with that? You know who came up with that one? That was white boys. Right. I dated a Chinese girl, right? I dated a Chinese girl, and she told me in China, the white man that's in the United States, that's actually a 4 and a 5, a 3, 4, 5, are 10s in China.
Sure, but here's
they're 10s in China.
But here's
so they're coming out here and getting all these white boys over there.
Yeah, but see that again. That's an incomplete picture that they give, because it is true. Mm-hmm. Any Western man can go to another country and get a woman, but do you know what you're getting? That I hear them say, okay, I don't want a single mother here. Well, when you go to most of those countries, that's your whole dating pool are single mothers. The ones that want you. You're not going to get there, but no other country is going to let you come in as an outsider and get the cream of the crop. They ain't letting you do it. You'll get what couldn't get. If she couldn't get a man there, so I'm going to Colombia to get me a woman. If she that damn fine, why she ain't got a man already? Because she's got a whole list of baggage that you gonna sign up for. Maybe several kids, might even be married, probably a working girl, and they all mostly are deeply in poverty. So their motivation to be with you is wildly different. That's that's all over Latin America, the Caribbean. That shit exists in Africa.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to Africa and I'm gonna get me a woman. You're not getting that cream of the crop because they all gone to the kings and the princes and the high end up. And the ones you get, they are deep into poverty. So I encourage any young man or young woman for that matter. I tell my kids to travel for you. You become a more fuller person. You need to get to know the world. We're becoming globally. If you just so happen to meet somebody, you meet somebody. However, don't think nothing over there is any better or any different than what's over here, because it's not. And at the bare minimum, the people here, the sisters here don't want to hear that shit. And I don't want to hear you. If you're going to go get one, just go get one. Leave these alone. Leave these sisters alone. That's not, I'm a firm believer. Crapping on my sisters here. If you want a woman in China, shitting on a black woman here ain't helping you. Just go get one.
But the crazy part, right? You'll get, but understand, like, the kids that you produce are black. I just want to put it out there. Your kids are black. Right. Your kids are black.
It's just that narrative, people are too quick to drop it. And every time I hear it, I'm going to push back on it forcefully and just say, just let him go, because he don't know what the hell he's about to get into anyway. Let the dummy go.
All right, gentlemen.
We'll go next.
My answer to the question a couple questions ago, because you guys go back and forth through topics pretty quickly. So the question I did want to answer was the one about the modernity. The modern men and modern women. I do think that it's modern time, so automatically the men and the women are modern. What these people are talking about, though, is a difference between methods and values. We can have traditional values, but we have to have modern methods, because nobody's going to work in the steel mills. Nobody's going to work in the mines. So the modern methods have to be employed. But we could even in these big metropolitan cities value marriage, so that men and women are getting married earlier, value marriage, not having sex outside of marriage. We could have traditional values, but that's not what's happening. These men and these women are having children before marriage. So there are no traditional men and women in a large enough scale to say,
sex before marriage. They're not going to want to give up sex before marriage. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so all of it. So all of the traditional values are not what we have, but we want the other person to hold true to old values because it benefits us. But we're not going to apply them on our own selves. And that's what I wanted to bring up with number 3. Do women and men, women or men with multiple children outside of wedlock, hurt themselves more or the community? And we'll go with Stanley first, then Rico. And just so you guys know, I will be using the 5-minute shot clock on you guys, and then we'll switch up. So go ahead, Stanley.
I don't know. I can't say they hurt.
There you go.
I can't say it hurts because both my grandmothers had multiple children in and out of relationship, different islands. So that's what happens, right?
Does it hurt themselves or the community? Is what the question is.
I don't think it could, because they found another man anyway. They got another boo. It's. I'm fighting 3 ideas in my mind, right? This stuff was in front of me on TV, on this, and then the reality of Miami, and the reality of the islands. You're gonna find you a man. You look good. Your children well behaved. You gonna get you one. You clean. You have a clean house. Because what you're looking at is not like it's an addition, right? Because he can have kids, you can have kids, you guys like each other, you guys are gonna make some more kids, they're gonna interblend, and also you're part of a bigger family. So it benefits you to settle down with a man who also have his own children, because now there's also your own children. This family become your family, right? And that's something like people don't understand that concept of marriage. Is like it's not just you and him. It's us and them now. It's your family and his family, and it becomes really big. And there's nothing wrong with that because I've seen it work. And I've seen it work so many times. It's like now I'm being challenged now, like it doesn't work. And that's not what people want. But when I'm looking back, I'm like, no, it works. I've seen it happen before. And there was something there. There was a loving thing that was there because they both understand the value of being together. It didn't matter he had to be rich or anything. There was a value that, hey, we're together now. We're a family. We're one unit. And there was a value in that. So it doesn't hurt your chances, but you got to be clear though. Like if you have kids, you can't go out there and like pop in your woo-woo and twerk without expecting man to do some work. Like you got to slow down a little bit. Same thing for the guys, man. You got kids, brother. Like you need to slow down too. You're up here pump. Like stop that stuff. Like hook up, stay hooked, and call it a day. So like you got to look at it. Like what's your goal here? Because you got kids. Sorry, you got to think about yourself and your children and security. Marriages bring security. It's something for the children. You know, I wish, my mom did get remarried, but I understand why she didn't want to get remarried. But like, I get like, it is a little difference. Like when you do have some older man in your house to protect the house, like it brings in a stability that's there.
Well, I think.
All right, Rico, go ahead.
But
you got to put the 5 minutes, Sean. It's Rico's turn.
Oh, don't worry, I ain't gonna take it.
No, I was at 2:40, so I want you to get your full 5.
He's like, nah, that's enough.
So no, I think I don't think in any manner does it hurt the community. No. I mean, but I think it makes the struggle harder for the single parent, for the parent having multiple kids out of wedlock. And then I look at the question. It's like, well, what if they got 3 kids from the same father, or is it 3 kids from 3 different fathers? Things like that. So I think, well, 3 kids from the same father, that's not going to be as harmful as 3 kids from 3 different fathers, because that's a different dynamic. But I still think most of the harm is on that individual household. I don't see how it can hurt the community other than, because I think the people who would look at it and say it's a bunch of single mothers, that's coded language. That's a dog whistle anyway. And we know they seem to only apply that to one community. And all those women could be married and they still would talk about that community, in those terms. So, people, like I said, like I told you, thug is another term for the N-word. If they don't want to call you the N-word, they'll call you a thug. Same thing. They're synonymous. Yeah. We know it's coded. So, again, I think it is harmful to the individual family. I think if you have multiple children, for the family, obviously, a mother or parents with one child will be far more successful than a family with 3 kids on the same income. Why? It's less of a burden. It's just fewer people to have to take care of. So if you're a single parent or a married couple with 1 kid, your life is easier than a single parent or a married couple with 3 or 4 kids. So the numbers is just automatically more tougher, but I don't think it's tougher on the community because the burden on the community is going to be the same, whether it's one little ragamuffin or whether it's 5 little ragamuffins. I think it's still going to be the same.
Oh Lord, ragamuffins!
I'm old. Obviously, having all those kids, and especially when you have multiple fathers, it causes a lot of, and I come from, like I said, a household where pretty much all except me and my one sister had different daddies. So the problem would be, well, our daddy, we saw every blue moon, My older two siblings ain't never see their daddy. So, you know, you have those dynamics with the siblings. You don't know who your daddy is, stuff like that, because kids are mean. They're even mean to each other, even when it's family.
I would say that too. I would say that like back in the day.
Brother, he beat me up for saying it. You know, right? You don't know who
He's still mad.
I'm your daddy.
And he's still mad at you for doing that?
Oh yeah, he beat the brakes off me. You know, like say it again. You know, if we all had the same daddy, we'd be able to say it, right? So you know, and it just was. It was just that way. So I think it is on the individual, not the community. Go ahead, R'Shaun.
No, I want to say this. I want to add on to what he was saying, R'Shaun. Okay.
Yeah, hold on, Stanley.
And I just want to add something real quick.
Okay. I got you. Hold on, please. We got Simma. Thank you for joining the panel. Well, not the panel. Thank you for joining the show. Appreciate you for showing up. And shout out to Just Kaya. Thank you, Just Kaya, for stopping by. And Stanley, go ahead and get your last 3 minutes since Rico shut you down earlier.
Oh, no 3 minutes. It was only 30 seconds. That was all. I just want to add on, like, there was also a side to that, too, when you had, like, separate fathers, where the one father that was active, he was active in all the kids' life so that the siblings will grow up in uniform. So, like, it was okay. I think what's going on now, where child support comes in and where the woman or the mom could be, like, a little bit opportunistic and, like, I want to get more child support, even though you're not the father, I could claim it. It becomes that rift now more than ever of not, and it affects the community because now he doesn't want no part. He only wants to deal with his bloodline and no one else, as opposed to thinking about, like, you know, I'm not here all the time. Let me make sure that the other siblings are okay. Because how I grew up is no matter what happens, you take care of the whole household. Didn't matter if this is your step cousin or whatever. They're in your household. You took care of everybody within your household. And that's all I wanted to say. That was it.
Definitely appreciate that, gentlemen. On that question, I just know a lot of people, even again, this week has been coming up a lot because there's been debate between the people who think that the single mothers don't have the fathers involved in their children's lives. That's why I just said out of wedlock, because people are debating, you know, are the fathers involved or are they not? I didn't even want to have that discussion. Let's just say if they're not married. Unmarried couples, just you tend to have different outcomes statistically, but you know, I don't know anecdotally how that impacts families versus the community. There are a lot of unattended to children, and that it doesn't really matter if the father's around or not. I've just seen a lot of unattended children, and that does impact the community. And even where I live, there's a lot of children that run around, they're doing property damage, they're just not watched. And I can't say the father's not home. I just know they're unattended to. So I was just curious about that. Like, what did you think of, you know, the impact on the community? But you're right, I do think it probably is more of a micro problem, you know, affecting the family than it is the community at large. But to move on to question number 4, if you don't mind, gentlemen, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but how much of today's relationship problems were caused by the absent parents, poor parenting, or generational issues within the community, such as poverty or, trigger word, racism? Go ahead, Steph.
All right. You know, I want to ask something because you said something in the last one that was very important. I know in dating, it was different for my mother because she was divorced and single. So when men approach her, they had to approach her a little bit different since she wasn't a baby mama. So when they approach her, they had to win her over with us. So dating for a woman who was divorced with children is different than dating for a woman who had multiple kids. There was a different expectation, and the community was there to remind that man, like, hey, she was married, and the expectation that man that's trying to, like, woo my mother wasn't for him to hit it. It was him for, like, to acknowledge us as the kids and to make us into a whole family. So that was a whole community input. And it just hit me when you said it, like, oh yeah, there was a little difference. I would say for today's relationship, yeah. Good question, though. Good question, man. You need to write articles, my brother. Write articles. I would say absentee parents, I mean, it's a big deal because not having a father in the house even though my parents were divorced, I got treated a lot differently with my friends who were married. Even though my father paid for everything and everything else, there was a different. I saw the difference. So my friends who basically didn't have fathers because they were like one of 5 or 10 kids, right? When we went to one parent's house where they were both parents, they were more charitable towards him. With me, it was kind of like, okay, that's it. You should get home right now. Like it was kind of like, your father needs to do this, right? So there wasn't really more of a concern for me. It was much more expectation that my father needs to do this, even though my father got remarried and he was with another family, and there was a very callous way of treating me, as opposed to someone who was not a divorced kid. So divorced kids and kids in single parent household was a two different thing, and I saw it because I was a divorced kid, a kid of divorce. So I saw the difference, and also the difference too was like how my mother got treated, because it was like they saw her more as a threat, because now she's single and she didn't do anything wrong. So the husband could look at her a little differently and like, okay, I won't leave my marriage to go to her. So like a lot of fear. So it was a lot of differences I saw. And so like, it just, I could see it. It just adds on a lot of stuff to where I just didn't respect marriages anymore, because I thought it was like more a game. And that's how I saw it. Like it became strategies. Like if I married this person, I can do this. If I stick around this marriage, I can move up to here. It was like a chess piece. And I hate to say it, that's why I began to saw marriages, because again, nobody was sitting down with me and explaining stuff. And when you're receiving so much information, you left alone to process it, you begin to see like, man, like this is deep. Like I gotta like wonder, like if there's such thing as love. And if since there is no love, okay, how do I make this benefit for my life? So me getting married meant like I'll probably get a raise at my job, which is true. Because although nobody didn't tell me, I figured that out. People were like, me and this brother, we're getting paid, we're doing the same job, but he's getting paid more than me because he's married. And he get weekends. I got to work on the weekend, right? He gets a bonus. I don't. I get overtime. And so I just begin to see it like, wow, man, like, I need to get married because I get benefits.
You want me to jump in?
Oh, heck yeah, man. Come on in, my brother.
No, I was just thinking, when I looked at the question, I would say I would agree with it all, with the exception. I'm not sure about the poor parenting, how that, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't even initially I excluded the absent parent. But then I had to always take everything back to me personally. And like I grew up without a father, but that didn't affect me anyway, because all my friends, none of us had fathers. That was as sick as sick and as twisted as it sounds, because I always grew up in neighborhoods that had high percentages of single motherhoods. I thought that was normal. I mean, most neighborhoods I lived in, it was 70, 80, 90% single mothers. I told somebody, like, I think out of my entire childhood growing up, I knew I had like 5 friends that had a father. Like none of the rest of them, they were all, I played football. The whole football team was single mothers. It just, they were good. They usually are, but they were single mothers. So I never thought, but the one person I saw it in that I saw it affect mostly is actually my second oldest son, because he had an absentee mother. And I never knew how that could, and actually both sons have struggled with it. My oldest two, one has to deal with very serious abandonment issues. So I see where it affects him with his baby mama. He'll just destroy every relationship so they don't leave him. He just fuck it up and just destroy them. So I see how that affects him. I'm thankfully that my oldest son is sort of like, he still deals with it, but he's worked through it. He's been 12 years married. So I'm glad about that. And I would have to tell my son, I can't fix that. So I do see where the absent parent, and I don't know why I think we as a society accept an absent father. And it should be. So even those kids should be messed up. But I think we practice and prepare. If a child's born and the father's gone, somehow something kicks in to protect him from that pain. But when a mother's gone, I don't think anybody pays any attention to that because you don't expect that to be the case. It's so unusual. Yeah. But there are children, especially little boys, growing up. And I tell everybody, I said that was a problem because I couldn't teach my kids empathy because I'm not a woman. So the things that they needed until I remarried and my stepwife, but by then that was past their formative years. And I think it's always affected them. So I do see where that can ring true. If you told me an absent father, I'm like, hell, shit. It's so many of those. Why are you tripping? But when you think about an absent mother, I'm like, yeah, that kid, he didn't get the hug and the love and all that stuff that you expect. The nurturing you get from a mother, the fathers don't give. And I didn't either. Generational issues with, at first I thought y'all was talking about the older generation. I was about to get salty. But now that I see that you're talking, I'm like, well, I ain't got nothing to do with it. But yes, clearly poverty and racism is part of it. Y'all gonna stop blaming this shit on me, right? But yes, poverty and racism. Come on, poverty flat out. Hey, flat out poverty, the pressures of economic poverty. I mean, hell, it's hard to love when you poor. It's hard. I'm not gonna say it can't be done, but it's hard. You know, it's just the economic pressures of trying to feed a family, keep a roof over your head, you know, just sustain decent medical health care and love at the same time. You don't have time to think about love because you're constantly thinking about survival. You know, it's hard to slow down and think about love if almost every waking moment of your day is spent on just trying to survive. So that clearly, and obviously I think racism, I think racism is less of a problem when you're in segregated neighborhoods. That's the way I kind of thought of it. When I'm in an all black neighborhood, racism doesn't have anything to do because we're all black. But when you say you start to come up out of your socioeconomic scale, so you're in all black neighborhoods, so now you come up a little bit, now you get into a middle class neighborhood, more diversity, issues of racism become, because I know that's how it was for me. When I was living in the hood, I ain't never experienced racism. Hell, we all black, right? Then when you come out and you start getting in more diversified, desegregated neighborhoods, you start to recognize it and see it more. And then sometimes, and then on top of it, you end up in a racial relationship. Then you have those additional, not like necessarily between me and my wife, but still from outside forces. And you just have to manage them a little bit better. So I do think it can affect your dating. And even like I said, if you're in a mixed race marriage or dating, because when you go to date, you do get pressures from the family. My wife, she had some racist people on her family side, and I had some on my side that said some fucked up shit too.
How you handled them?
That was racist.
No, but how you handled them though? I want to know because I need to get better at it.
My motherfucking black ass. I mean, because the bottom line is, I don't play that. I didn't play that. I was just like very strongly, but it wasn't from my mother, and that's all it mattered, and that's how she raised me was, live your life for you, not even me. And I tell my sons that you don't live your life for me, you live your life for you. Your successes are yours, so are your failures. I'm here to help guide you, but it's your life. Don't care what I say. You have to live your life, and I want you to live your life. So when I had them little family members that want to pop, they wasn't doing nothing for me no damn way. So it was easy to cuss them out. It's usually the ones that do the very least that got the most to say. Close to you and love you, they're supportive. It's those ones at a distance anyway. So you can get it even within your family from people who feel a certain kind of way. It'd be a different culture. you get it. So I that's the way I lean with. The only thing that I don't think so much is the poor parenting. I'm like, I just don't see how that affected. Oh, my time's up, R'Shaun. What do you know?
Come on, R'Shaun.
Am I still
Your
frozen?
turn.
Am I still frozen?
Yeah, you still frozen a little bit. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Oh
Though.
man, you gotta be kidding me, man.
Put your avatar and come back, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just stop my camera for a minute. All right, as long as you guys can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Real quick,
Yes.
I want to push back on what Rico said, because even in the question, he said the racism didn't apply because all the black people live together. You know why they live together, Rico? Redlining,
yeah, right,
racism. So going back to the question, how much of today's relationship problems were caused by absent parents, poor parenting, all that stuff? Okay, I was impacted by absent parents. I didn't have a father. So I didn't have him in the home. I didn't have a male role model. I didn't see masculinity. I didn't see the dynamics between a man and a woman in the home, in a relationship. There's a whole bunch of things I didn't get just by not having a man in the home. Poor parenting. Then there's my mother. Like Stanley talked about earlier, there's a whole bunch of things she just never talked about. She didn't tell me about, didn't prepare me for. So then poor parenting played a factor in my life. And again, both of these things I know plagued other people too. Then you have the generational issues. One of the reasons she didn't teach me a lot is because she always had to work to cover the bills. So then poverty played an effect in her poor parenting. So, I mean, all three of those ended up being linked in some dynamic. And then racism more than likely can be linked to all three of the other factors. The absent parent, you know, they like to say, like in the red pill space, the fathers were pushed out for a welfare check. If that's the case, even if I grant you that point, what the woman chose was economic stability, even if it's on a lesser income bracket than a man who, you know, she would lose any case of stability because racism would have those men out of work. They're the last ones to get the job and then the first ones to get laid off or fired. So racism played a part in the absent parents. Racism played a part in the poor parenting because they didn't have time to spend with their children. Racism played a part in the poverty because of redlining, economic disadvantages. To this day, people are receiving a $500,000 less appraisal on your home when you have black pictures on your wall than when you have white ones. That's a huge economic disadvantage from one household. So if you extrapolate that out on all households of wealth and you bring it down on the like poverty level, working class, they're disadvantaged not to a $500,000 level, but all of their choices are then economically disadvantaged. The bus lines that take longer to get them to work, they're losing an extra half an hour, 45 minutes just to get to their job and another 30, 40, 45 minutes back, where somebody else can drive 15 minutes to and from work. Or where they're located, they have to go out further on the bus because the gentrification has taken up the closer places to the downtown metropolitan areas. So the black people have to get further home, you know? So, I mean, all of these little small details add up to a lesser version of the life that's possible because of racism. So racism affects all of the other three, in my opinion. I can't prove it. It's just there's so much evidence to it being linked to all of the other ones that I can't divorce it either. I think today's relationship problems are directly affected because even as a person you are who you are because of everything that happened in your life before it. So you can't also divorce a people from that same dynamic. We are who we are because of everything that happened to us as a people before today. You don't all of a sudden get to tell me today to operate the same way that these other people operate who got to assimilate because their color matched yours. If I'm always on the outside and always a second-class citizen, where I live was determined before I was born. You know what I'm saying? So all of these different things, my education is disadvantaged because of where I was born. My credit is affected by where I was born. How I'm penalized in the justice system or in the schools is affected by the color of my skin. How I'm policed is affected by the color of my skin. All these things impact us. There are too many factors at play to really, for me, separate them out, which is why I always wonder why people in the red pill spaces will key in on one thing, like you need to get fit and feminine. There's too many things at play in our relationships for us to make it as simple as you need to lose some weight. It's just not that simple.
Can I add one more thing to that too? One thing I noticed, I noticed growing up, when it comes to poverty and racism, I noticed like the poor white families, the men were allowed to stay in the household. Like she was allowed to keep her husband. I noticed that growing up, and her husband would get aid. Like he's helping out with a special need child. I noticed that a lot, and I was like, wow, that's unique because like even though some of them were like brought down to our level, but they got treated a lot differently than say a black family was because we're always like held in suspicion, like we up to like do something grimy and we're trying to like take from the government, although government took from us. But we can talk about slavery. There's another
But you know
show.
what? You know what's funny about that though?
Mhm.
Even though, excuse me, even though if that may have been true, their outcomes didn't necessarily turn out any better. You know what I'm
I don't
saying?
know about that. No,
So no,
I
no.
wouldn't.
So the trailer park kid with the trailer park dad, I don't think his outcome turned out necessarily any better than the black kid in the ghetto with the single mother. I think they both end up at the same place in life because the main now racism matters absolutely, but the
Yeah,
overriding issue, because that's why I always say, like, poor white people vote against their interests too, because sometimes they would rather a poor white person is more closely aligned with a poor black person, but yet will still be convinced to vote against the issues of the black person.
yeah,
They still are so allegiance to the color and fail to realize you're in the same bucket because of poverty.
yeah,
Poverty is such a pressing depressor on you that almost, I don't care what color you are, it is almost impossible to come up from the depths of poverty. You will see most people, you get a damn unicorn that occasionally come out from the lower 5 percentile of the economic industries in America. It'll take like 6 generations before you start to even see high school graduates, because most of them, even the poor white ones, they're high school dropouts. They end up being meth heads, turn it because of poverty. But somehow they can convince them. It's more easy to convince them, oh, that's all them handouts going to them black folks in the welfare. Now you in the
yeah,
damn trailer park on a double wide, and you worried about the black people down the street getting a check. And you see how they pit poor people against poor people. It's
yep.
poverty, and the racism exists, absolutely. So I'm never going to take that off the table. But the poverty is the greatest. Go ahead, R'Shaun.
I definitely agree with you to a certain degree because poverty, again, racism and the poverty are linked for us, but the poverty is a part of capitalism, which is eating more than just us. But we're going to, we're at the bottom of the totem pole. So we're the first one eating, because it eats from the bottom. So we're getting eaten alive, and everybody at the totem pole is going to get caught eventually. So the disparity is real. So, but it's just, getting us first, getting us worse, but everybody's getting got.
I just
But I
look at
wanted
it
to.
from, go ahead. I just look from the standpoint where I don't know if you heard of Reverend William Barber, and he's with
Yep.
the Poor People's
Poor People's Campaign.
And he specifically speak of trying to unite poor people of all colors, because he's like, look, we can break this shit. Poor people have to unite. There are far more poor people in this country than anything else. So if we want things to change, poor people have to unite. And I think it would be a monumental change in this country. Not that we got to kumbaya with each other, but start voting for people for the interest of poor people and not special interests that speak to rich people, which that's what capitalism is. And that's why we're all getting screwed. Go ahead, R'Shaun. Next question.
I definitely agree with you. I wanted to shout out Real Talk with Mimsy Limbs. Thank you for being in the building. I appreciate you being here. I've enjoyed you on every panel you've joined so far. So love your perspective and the way you humbly approach topics that you're not the most familiar with. So a lot of people get on and dispout stuff, but you've been very respectful and humble, and I appreciate the way you approach these topics, especially the sensitive ones. And I also wanted to shout out Where the Rabbit Hole Ends. First time seeing you, but I'm really glad you're here. Hope you enjoy what we have to say today. And let's going to get right back into it. Did you have anything else, Stanley, on that question before we move to number 5?
No.
Well, the question number 5 is, what do you think of? Because we're switching all the way up, going into back into the red pill talking points. What do you think of when he, in this one is Kevin Samuels, when he says I'm a PhD, do women need to shift priorities? We'll go with Stanley first again, and then Rico.
Well, I'll say this: it's just education. It's just a degree. Do you want a man? Yes or no? And some stuff is just simple. Like if you want a man, you just get yourself a man, and just know when you home, this is expectation. You come home, because either way, man or woman, you have somebody at home. It doesn't matter. I'm never come at somebody and tell them the degrees I have or the fellowships I won. That stuff doesn't really matter to me. That's my own personal achievements. I know when I come home or I'm in love with somebody or I'm in a relationship with someone, right now I need to know, like, hey, how was your day? Like, what's going on? Like, what's up? Before I come home, like, hey, I'm getting this because I wasn't too sure you were making dinner. And I'm not too tired to make dinner myself, so I'm thinking about bringing this home tonight. What you think? Because guess what? Like, I don't want to fight when I come home. I already fought. I work. I'm a social worker. I'm tired. I don't. I just want to come home, lay up, watch TV, and relax. I don't want all that the talking points and all this weird stuff. It's like it's me and you right now. That's it. It's just me and you. And if we're honest with ourselves, that's how we are with our own friends. It's like we don't come to our friends. It's like, what degree you got? And you need to. We don't even do that with our own friendships. So how do we expect that from a partner? We don't do that. So less value on the relationships and more value on relationships itself.
Well, I know for me, I don't even know where this talking point got created. I think this is a red pill talking point, like many others. Somebody just reach in there behind and pull it out. They'll just reach and say, "Oh, they said," and it's like, I have never in my life. I ain't been dead the last 20 years, and I've been in a lot of conversations and people dating. I've never heard this until you came to the YouTube space. So I'm like, what woman is saying I'm gonna pass up a husband for? I know people go for their PhDs to try to advance in their job. Like I work with a lot of PhDs. They're in the field of science. You need a PhD when they're scientists. So like, it makes sense. That's what they would do. I get the whole people say, it's a wasted degree on this. I mean, I don't know. I don't think all PhDs are equal. Like, I don't think all degrees are equal. Yes, there are some wasted degrees, but if the woman is in between, if she ain't had a date in 5 years and she decides I'm going to take the next 2 years to get a PhD, I don't think that's a bad deal. Because hell, she probably won't have a date in another 2 years. So she might as well do something with her time. Why not get educated? So don't date and sit around and be dumb. That just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why these degrees, while I think some of them are unnecessary, why is the degree the boogeyman? Why is the guys going, oh, she got a degree? Like, what the hell? I don't get it. If she's sitting around and not having, I would much rather meet a woman and say she said she spent the last 5 years working on her education rather than she spent the last 5 years doing some nonsense. Doing what you been doing the last 5 years? I've been on OnlyFans. I've been twerking. I've been living a boss B life. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. No, I'll take the one with the PhD. I'll take her. I'll take the one that like to read. I'll take her.
I've been enjoying my hot girl summer.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? It's like I mean, just it's something that I know for the last 5 years. Like, oh hell no. So I'm not saying pro PhD. I'm just saying, like, I have to see. I think it's a case by case basis, and I'm not knocking no woman for getting an education. That just makes no sense to me. Unless the logic to me doesn't make. I don't see a degree and go running down the street screaming and crying and hollering and think she. And if she's too.
What if she got a PhD in the metaverse?
Huh?
What if she got a PhD in the metaverse?
I don't even know what that is.
That's YouTube.
I'm coming in here with that Wattz.
No,
no, not YouTube. That's Facebook. The Facebook changed their name to
Facebook,
Meta.
my bad.
And now they the metaverse and shit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I threw a wrench in there.
But I'm just saying, again, like I said, I hear it's created as an insult, but I don't see how it's an insult. And the only place I ever heard it was here.
R'Shaun, you want to introduce the new guest, and then Pearl can break it down to Rico?
Yeah. Everybody, I want to introduce to the stage. We have the man that goes by the name 100 Wattz. You know what it is. He loves those that love him. Follow him on Finesse Visions here on YouTube, and he just got on Twitch. So follow him wherever you can find him.
You're going to have to teach me about Twitch. I don't know nothing about that. I learned from you or Yella. That's it.
Hey, look, I'm still trying to figure it out myself, my brother. Don't have me sitting here trying to lie. I'm still trying to figure it out too.
That's the new thing, right? Twitch.
Yeah.
Twitch is... everybody said. I'm like, what the hell is Twitch?
Yeah. I mean, but look, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, at all of the searching and looking that I do on that platform, these conversations that we're having right here doesn't happen over there. It just doesn't happen over there. Like the space for this, for people that look like us, it's wide open. Wide open. You know what I'm saying? And the regulations in terms of how people get paid and the amount of sponsors and all of that, it's still in limbo right now. So you can very possibly make more money over there on Twitch than you can over here on YouTube right now, because it is still a free for all right now.
That's good info. Real quick before Wattz chimes in on actual what we're talking about, I want to shout out Partly Cloudy 420 in the chat. Thank you for being here tonight. Hopefully you get something useful or informative or entertaining out of this conversation. But Wattz, on what we were talking about with the red pill talking points. Oh, and if everybody doesn't know, forgive me, when I introduce 100 Wattz, he is also 1/3 of the crew known as the Nighthawks. You'll find them on the Chef Chapino channel. ChefChoupino. That is also on YouTube, and they fly by night. So you won't find them anytime before 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Eastern time. Go ahead, Wattz. What you got?
Cappuccino.
Chef Cappuccino. Chef Chia. Chef Chia, I think it was.
1/3 of the Nighthawks, also 1/3 of Earning My Stripes podcast, which you can find on Finesse Visions. We definitely just hopped off of there. We were talking about, will Michael Jordan always be known as the GOAT? So check me out over there and check into that conversation. But look, here's the thing. I'm a PhD. I always think that it's a funny conversation because people in this space generally speak ill of women with college educations. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna keep it a whole being with you. There's a young lady who I have in my life right now who she has a bachelor's degree, very educated. She is a very educated young lady. You feel me? And is in limbo in terms of whether she wants to go for her master's degree or not. You know what I'm saying? And I don't knock her for it at all. If that's what she want to do it, sweetheart. Do your thing. She's a very smart woman, so I'm not gonna knock her for wanting to get her education. Now, here's where the problem comes into play, and this is why I appreciate her, is because she never uses her college education to emasculate me. Because I have a high school diploma. As soon as I graduated high school, I went straight into the military. She never uses her education to emasculate me. The education that she got, the experience that she got dealing with people, the experience that she got with people that she likes, doesn't like, interacting with people, social interactions and things of that sort, I think was a part of her becoming the person that she is. That's part of her being the woman that she is right now. You see what I'm saying? So for a dude just to think that because a woman got a bachelor's degree or a PhD, no, it's about what she does with it. Now, if you got a PhD in something you can't get a job in, then you did waste your time. Now I question your decision making, because you did this just to prove a point. You did this just to be a smart ass to say I got a PhD instead of actually doing something that you can use.
Let me ask you a question. Is that any worse than the gentleman that we know who started the talking point, who didn't even get a damn degree, who wasted 3+ years of college? Now, what about that? See, we don't look at that perspective, right? So we'll say the woman with a PhD was a wasted degree, but you go 3+ years of college and don't even get a degree that you can get a damn job in?
See, and you know what? And the crazy part is, most of these men that are talking ill of these women probably didn't even finish their first year in college.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So anyone that speaks ill of someone who has a college education, you're tripping. You're bugging.
Thank you, Wattz. Thank
You see what I'm saying? So look, any man that speaks ill of a woman with a college education, you're not understanding the benefits that she can bring to you. Because if all you're looking for is a trophy wife, then cool, that's fine. But I'm not looking for a trophy wife. That's not what I want. I don't want some woman who's gonna be sitting at the house, sitting on the couch, waiting for me to come home and tell her what the next decision is. I need her to be able to make decisions. I need her to be able to have critical thinking skills. I need her to be able to think ahead. Don't be reactionary. Don't wait for me to tell you what to do. If we ran out of tissue, don't wait for me to come home and give you my bank card for you to go to the store and go buy some fucking tissue. You should be able to see in the closet we down to our last roll and take your ass to the store and go get some more tissue. See what I'm saying? Some of these dudes are like, the expectations they have of their women are so unreal. And this is me speaking my personal opinion. The expectations you have of your women is so unreal. I don't understand it.
I co-sign every word you said, sir. I don't get it. I don't. And exactly the same thing. And a college educated woman is a woman that you can have a conversation with. You can have a full field, because this woman has learned critical thinking skills. She'll have her own field of study. And like I said, the young lady that you talking about, Wattz, y'all can talk. Say, hey, look, I mean, y'all, I'm pretty sure y'all have some deep, meaningful, fulfilling conversations that you ain't gonna get from Hot Girl Summer.
Look, man, honestly, if you go to my YouTube page and you look at some of these, and you look at the titles of some of these videos that I have on my YouTube page, I've had these same conversations with her behind the scenes. I've had these same conversations with her. Hey, this week I want to talk about this, that, and the other. What do you think of that? And me and her can actually sit down and have an intellectual conversation about building. So that way I'm not walking in here just off of the whim. Like, I need to be able to bounce. I need to be able to bounce my ideas off of somebody. I need to be able to bounce my thoughts off of the woman that I have in my life. If I say, you know what, sweetheart, I'm gonna start a business, and we're gonna sit on the corner, we're gonna sell watermelons all day. I need her to be able to say, well, you know what? It would probably be a smarter idea if you do this, that, and the other. You know what, sweetheart? You're right. Let's do that. Because having a trophy wife, sure, sweetheart, let's do it. And then we're gonna just both be sitting out on the corner broke as fuck, trying to figure out what the next move is.
Hey, if you're gonna sell watermelons, sell it with lemonade. Because that's gonna make them really thirsty, and they're gonna eat the watermelon. So,
like, what are we talking about?
What are we saying?
Hey, R'Shaun's up here for me to answer Rico's question
right there. Real quick, shout out to Yella.
A lot of the college girls are the ones having the hot girl summer. Look, see, here's the reality. Here's what happens. Here's what happens. Some girls are sheltered when they're younger in high school and they get into college and they want to have their whole phase. That's fine. Please get it out the way. Get it out of your system now. Your freshman, your sophomore year, get that bullshit out your system. So that way, when you get to your senior year, junior year, when you're about to start wrapping it up and you're about to walk into the real world and you're actually in a position to where you're looking for a husband and you're looking for someone to spend the rest of your life with, you got all it out of your system already. And I don't got to worry about that no more.
And here's the part that's missing out of it, right? That hot girl, that college girl that's having her hot girl summer, that's fine. At the end of 4 years, she's going to end up with a degree. As opposed to Keisha having a hot girl summer for the next 12 years, her ass ain't going to end up with nothing about 3 babies.
I need to know what man has a problem with the woman having a hot girl summer that didn't have a hot boy summer, a hot boy year. you was out here on one night stands and popping and hitting on random joints, but you mad at her for having one time period in her life where she wanted to explore her sexuality, where she wanted to try and figure out. Because honestly, here's the thing: a lot of these women that don't experience that, they don't know what satisfies them sexually. So now you're expecting me as the man in your life to try and figure out all of these things to help you bust your nut. Why am I trying to figure out what makes you satisfied sexually? You should be coaching me. You should be telling me what it is that you like and what you don't like. I'm not. Why am I trying? Why do I know more about your body than you? That is a red flag to me. If I know more about your body than you do, that is a red flag to me.
Yeah.
And that's just me. That's just my personal thought. I don't know how y'all feel about that.
We'll go to R'Shaun because you ain't have no. I need to hear your thoughts on it, sir.
No, real quick on the PhD thing. I really don't. I like what Christina D said in the chat because I agree with her. It depends on what they want. Like, do women need to shift priorities? It really depends on what they want. They need to know what they want, what they're after, and how to go after it. Like I know people talking about, and she talks about it there too. Women with the degrees that want to marry successful men, they don't want to hear what men want. They put in work to get the degree, but not the work to understand men. So that's the breakdown. They say they want something, but then they don't put in the work to pursue it. They'll put in the work for the degree, for the career, but not to understand men. And that only goes to what Wattz said, not even understand their own bodies and their own selves, their own psychology. So I mean, a lot of times, and that's not specific to women. Men do it too. A lot of times we're not self-aware. We don't do the journey of self-discovery. We don't know what we're actually after. A lot of us will be talked into getting married, and we don't want anything to do with monogamy. So I mean, all of us are susceptible to doing things we really don't want to do because we don't even take the time to examine what it is we really want. We're coming to the table with a lot of ideas and feelings that were passed down to us from our friends, from our families, from our television. So I really think we need to spend more time learning ourselves before we try to teach anybody else what they need to be doing. So I mean, that's my perspective on that.
Can I dig in a little bit with that, R'Shaun? So
Go
then,
ahead.
And the reason why I'm saying with your perspective, I want to dig into. So I want you to give me a little more feedback. So then that conversation is not a PhD conversation, and that's the case. You talking all of college. Because you can't just say it's just the women going for PhDs that need to discern it. Because now you're talking about any woman that's going to college needs to decide what she wants to do. So if we're going to tell a PhD, oh, you can't get a PhD, you need to decide what you want. You got to tell all the girls that's going to college. And now that becomes like a real heavy burden because I think as a smaller I think there are women like that. But I don't think that's the vast majority of the college-educated women, no matter at what level, whether it's a bachelor's, master, or PhD.
Can I say that 20%. I also learned something. There are quite a few women that I met that have PhDs, and they didn't get their PhD until they were married. So these were women who they were in the house, they were taking care of the children, they were taking care of the household, and they were taking night classes online to get to that next step because they wanted to do something with their time. Again, I don't understand what dudes are looking for when you want a trophy wife. She's not looking to just be in the house barefoot and pregnant. I promise you she's not. She wants to feel like she's doing something to accomplish with her life as well. So even if it is just going to school online, whether it be DeVry or University of Phoenix, she wants to do something with herself. She wants to be able to challenge herself. She wants to be able to do something to feel like she's being able to hit the next step in her life. Because I don't know of a woman. I don't know many women that really do enjoy seeing their man get up every day and go to work, and all she doing is just laying in the bed, getting the kids on a bus. She wants to do something with her time as well, and something more than just washing your dishes and your drawers, cuz I promise you, she wants to do something more than that. I promise she does.
Wattz, thank you for bringing up that point about most PhDs are by married women, because that's a part of the conversation that is left out, because that's usually, it's not a lot of women. As a matter of fact, most women don't go, what is it, like 4 years for a bachelor's, maybe another year or two for a master's, and then a PhD. So they usually don't go 1, 2, 3. They'll usually do some work years in between. And then they'll go back. Because I got a niece that's in psychology. So she did the 4 years. Then she got a master's. Then she spent several years working, had a kid, family life, and everything else. Then went back for the PhD. Because even oftentimes, to get in most of these PhD programs, you have to apply and be accepted. You just can't say, hey, I got the money, I want to go get my PhD. That's not the way it works. Most of those programs, they are pretty damn selective to get into. So if you get accepted, that's a big thing to say. Well, I don't want to do it because my husband don't want me to go. Well, that might be a one and done thing because they don't have those schools they don't have the same number of slots as they do for undergrad. So depending on what you want your PhD in, you have to compete, and you have to compete at certain schools for it. So I think the narrative they make it seem like anybody can get a PhD, and that's not even true.
Hey, real quick, Rico, I just want to introduce Yella to the stage. What's up, Yella?
What's going on, everybody? What's going on, panel? How y'all feeling tonight?
Good, brother.
Doing good. Doing good.
All right, it's I kind of want to jump in on this one because I feel like I actually feel like everybody's right. Everybody's kind of making like some really solid points on this, but I want to answer the question like verbatim, right? Because if I'm reading it right, then the question is about why he made a big deal about I'm a PhD. You know what I'm saying? So let's understand why I'm a PhD is even in our lexicon. You know what I'm saying? The person who said it was using it as a way for her to
justification for bullshit.
No, it was a way to validate why she should be attractive to men. Well, I'm this good. I'm a PhD. I got this and this. This, and it's like the problem that most women are having with that concept is that's gonna get you success in life. Go get a PhD. I'm not telling no women, especially black women, please go get as educated as you can. Go get any degree you can find, anything, any grant they give you, anything. Go to whatever school, you do whatever you got to do. However, do not think that any of those degrees and cap and gowns is going to make you more attractive to men. Because we don't really care about that at the end of the day. And it's not that we don't care about it because it's not an accomplishment. It's because that's not really what we going for. Especially if you want somebody who gonna take care of you. If you want like a provider. If you want like the man. You know what I mean? If you want somebody who's going to be in that position to really hold it down, he's not going to really care about your degrees. Now, this going to come in handy. It'll definitely come in handy in some shape, form, or fashion. It's just not going to enhance your... It's just not going to enhance your stock on, like... It's just not going to make you more attractive to men, basically. You know what I mean?
I got you, Yella. Hey, real quick, want to welcome Queen Forever 2K to the stage. How you doing tonight, young lady?
I'm good. How are you?
Good evening, sister.
Well.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hello. What you got for us?
You at work, Stanley?
Oh no, I'm home.
He in that basement. He in that damn basement.
No, when I said he was in his basement, I meant at work. What was the question, guys?
And Miss Christina D, I 100% agree with that.
Well, you don't listen to Kevin Samuels, but
Hell no.
But as far as women pursuing doctoral degrees and not pursuing marriage, do you think women should shift towards prioritizing marriage, or is the upper, the graduate degree still a quality pursuit? If I'm paraphrasing.
I think women should balance it because you never want one thing to overtake another thing, which can lead to regret later on in life. I know in college, some of my female Black professors with the PhDs, the doctorate, I remember one lady, and she had a beautiful house on a hill. We all went there for one of our end of the semester parties, and she had a big old house, but she was in it by herself. And the one thing she said later on was that she didn't prioritize her personal life, her education, and her professional life took over, and she wished she would have made more time to have kids and pursue relationships. So she was like, now I live through my nieces and nephews. So yeah, I think it's a balance. I think you can do you can pursue it. You can pursue both. It's just a balance. So everything needs you need to balance it. Everything in life. One you can't have too much of one thing is not a good thing. So yeah. I don't think you
Not
should
definitely.
choose one or the over the other. I think it's all about balance. And the person you're with would respect that. Like my spouse is always telling me, hey, if you want to go back to school and get your master's, go ahead. If you want to go after this, go ahead, So, yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I want to let you lead us on this next question because you talked about a little bit about the balance and deciding. Is there a good age or a time in your life where men and women should pursue marriage? I'll bring that up on the board. Just like, sorry about that. There we go. Is there a good age or time of life where men and women should be pursuing marriage?
No, because I don't think everybody's mature at a certain age. And marriage, you got to be ready for marriage, just like you got to be ready for children. You got to be ready for, yeah. I don't think it's an age. I think it's a maturity. You know, like don't run into something blinded, living in a la la land. And I think people think of marriage as a la la land. Like, oh, it's gonna be this and it's gonna be that, and we're just gonna be so happy. We're gonna travel and blah blah blah. And then when the first argument hit, you lose your mind, or you just live in la la land and you pretend, and then one day you just wake up next to the person and you don't even know who the person is, or you don't want to be with them. So yeah, I don't think it's an
Facts.
age. I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's maturity, you know? So yeah.
Appreciate that
I don't
answer,
think
Queen.
people should I don't think people should get married too young. That's my opinion. But yeah. Yeah. So that's it, guys.
All right, everybody, check your microphone. Somebody says we're getting feedback on the microphones, so please check your microphones. I'd like to go to Stanley, then Yella, then Wattz on this question that's up on the screen.
All right. I think that's based on individuals. There's some people. No, I'm going from like I'm from the South. There's some people I just knew they need to get married ASAP because them by themselves they're gonna get killed. They need to get married. They need somebody. Other than that, the ideal for me, I think it'd be over 40, over 50, because you have a lot of life experience. And then the person coming in, they kind of understand like, hey, we both got life experience. So how does it look blending it together? For me personally, I think for me getting married, man, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna be a player for life. I already got my old folks home like situated. There's a whole bunch of women there, all the men dead. So
Did you really say get married over 40 or over 50?
no, for everybody else, yes. For me, I'm gonna be a player for life. I already got my old folks home situated. It ain't no man there. They already did. Bunch of women and some cool nurses. I'm gonna be like flexing. So I just want to be taken care of and be like, you know what I'm saying, a Caribbean poppy. So that's Queen know my situation. I already gone through enough already. I'm good off marriage. It's just not for me. I'm okay.
All
but
right,
there's always going to be women around.
All right, go ahead, Yella. What is your response?
Okay, so if I had to put an age on it, because like I said, I don't believe nobody is ever ready for any of this stuff. Like, nobody's ever ready for kids. Nobody's ever ready for marriage because it's all different. at every experience. You never know what you're gonna run into. But if I had to put an age on it, I would say as early as possible for a woman and like 30 for a guy. I hope you don't have to wait till 60. You might not make it that long. Um, but yeah, just I mean, you want to be young enough to where you can still build your family and stuff like that, to where you can still enjoy some some sense of like your younger years or your youth with the person you with and stuff like that. But then you as a man you got some sense of direction. You know what I mean? And as a woman, like it is, if you do get married and kind of get that over with kids and building a family, then you can live. Then like that late 30s, 40s gonna be different. You know what I'm saying? You done had your kids, they took care of off in college somewhere. You know what I mean? Then you and your husband can go out and live y'all life. So yeah, that's about it.
All right, Yella, got you. What about you, Wattz? What you think?
Ooh, my personal answer for myself on this question, I think, is a little skewed, because I'm I'm walking into 30. I'll be 30 in April. And I swear to you, ain't no way in hell you gonna tell me I'm about to find a 21, 22-year-old woman to get married to. I just can't. I can't. I don't see how finding a younger woman is going to I don't see how finding a younger woman is going to be good for me, because a lot of these younger women are not on the same type of time that I need to be on. And then for two, I already have kids, so it's not like I'm looking for that. You know what I'm saying? So if I meet a woman and she says I don't want to have any kids, that's low key perfect for me. Like low key, that's perfect for me. I honestly wouldn't be mad at marrying a woman in her mid 30s right now. Somewhere in her mid 30s would probably be actually fucking perfect for me right now. So I'm my personal answer on that would be a little skewed. But if it was someone outside of myself, I would say to a man, mid to late 20s, because that's when you get into that space to where you're either coming up in your job, you're in a position to where you're probably in a place to be able to get a promotion, or you probably just graduated college, so now you're getting a decent paying job. So now you're in a more secure situation. So mid to late 20s for a man. For a woman, early middle 20s. But like I said, for myself personally, anything lower than mid 30s is a waste of time for me at this point, for real.
All right, Rico, I want you to answer this question, but if you could, keep it brief because I'm going to come right back to you and then come back around the panel because I got a curveball on this one I want to ask.
Oh, so the age? I would just say 30. I don't have a lot more than that. I think that's not too young, not too old. And I'm speaking from a male perspective. The man should be 30, and I'm with Wattz. You don't want a 21-year-old. You maybe, if you're a man, you go as young as 27 up to 34. You know what I'm saying? That'll be your range. You don't want the woman no more, maybe 3 years younger than you, maybe 3-4 years older than you. But by 30, you need to get married if you're going to do it. That's to me, that's a sweet spot. I didn't do it. Most people don't do it. But if I could do it all over again, that's what I would shoot for. And I think the first one would have lasted.
If I could, real quick. I'm sorry, real quick. I'm reading Marcus Rodriguez. He said, young women outside of westernized countries, first world countries. Here's my problem with that. If I go to another country and I bring her back here, because I'm gonna live in the United States. You ain't about to find me living in Thailand or no bullshit like that. I'm sorry. That's not about to be me, cuz. So when I go to these other countries and I bring her back here, at some point she's gonna become Americanized. So I brought her over here for us to be married for 5 years, for her to divorce me and go find somebody. No, fuck that. That's just me. Sorry.
Now, real quick,
You said she's stuck here, huh?
She's stuck. But real quick, you guys are. I've been on panels with you guys a few times now, and I know you guys are really intelligent individuals. So I really want y'all to think about this one before you respond, because it's kind of what Marcus said. Our bodies, we're desiring sex in our teenage years, but we're all talking about marriage in our 30s and 40s. We're not waiting for sex until our 30s, 40s, and what's Stanley, 30s, 40s, 50s. We're not waiting that long for sex. So what are we telling the next generation if we're telling them to wait until marriage at 30, 40, 50? But our bodies are like, yo, you gotta get something right now. Like you 15, and you like, man, your body's like, ugh.
See, here's the thing. Here's the
When they're
thing with that.
waiting and sex is the same thing. Sex
No,
is
hold on, hold
different.
on. I'm not saying they're the same thing. What I'm not saying they're the same thing, but our culture is telling people that they should not be having sex outside of marriage. Like that's the thing. You're not supposed to have sex outside of marriage. It's society and body counts and all this other stuff. If we're going to talk about body counts are negative and you want to keep your body count low, and STDs and pregnancies outside of marriage, if you're going to talk about all these things, then the inference is that you need to be married when you're having sex. Now, if that's the case, your body's ready to have sex when you're 15, 16, you ready to go.
See, here's I'm
We
sorry.
got to
Go
make
ahead.
that make sense.
Now, here's my thing with that.
Mm.
Here's my thing with that. The reason having sex as a teenager is a problem is because as a teenager, if you get her pregnant, you can't do shit for her. You see what I'm saying? It's not about being married or not being married. You can have sex outside of marriage. That's fine. Idealistically, realistically, you should wait until you're in your 20s before you start having sex. Because if you end up getting her pregnant in high school, what are you going to do? How are you going to take care of this child? For one. And for two, what benefit does it serve you in high school having sex other than to be able to say, hey, yeah, I beat that up, bro? Like, what benefit does that serve you? Now, it's a human thing and you feel the urge and all of that. But I think that there is a more value in being able to discipline yourself and hold back from that urge and proceed forward in life. Because I can tell you right now, when I was in high school, I was more focused on getting cheeks than going to football practice. That's
But
all
that's
I'm saying.
biologically driven, man. But that drive,
And
that's
that's the
a
and that's the
biological urge,
and
man. It's
that's the
hard to
problem.
discipline that.
And that's the problem, because a lot of us as human beings, we focus more on our urges. We focus on the instant gratification rather than the delayed gratification. If you can practice the delayed gratification at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and refrain from having sex, I promise you, it's going to set you up for so much better when you're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old. You're going to be set up so much better if you can focus on the delayed rather than the instant.
But you know what the problem with that is,
Oh,
though?
hold
Is
on,
it,
excuse me, Rico.
go ahead, Queen.
Can we address Marcus's comment about? I want to address his comment about if you want a healthy, more feminine, traditional woman, go outside the country to Mexico, Colombia, Middle East. Don't marry her in America. That's a slap in the face. There's plenty of women in America who are traditional. Please don't make that stereotype.
Yeah,
Because a
because
lot of times when you marry women or men outside of the country, they just want citizenship anyway. So let's not go there.
and there's plenty
Thank
brothers like
you.
me that likes nothing but black women, sir. So we can't go outside the country and get anything. I can't go anywhere to get a black woman. I can't.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey,
I
Yella,
don't.
if you can answer that question that I posed, I mean, outside of the marriage thing, I didn't even want to step on that one. But Yella, if you could go, then Stanley, and then Rico on that question about the age disparity about when we're having sex, and telling people to go for marriage.
Okay. So I'll give it to you like this then. Having been a teenager, been around teenagers, and raising a son that will eventually become a teenager, you got to teach them a lot of stuff. But one thing you can't do is tell a teenager what they can't do, because they're immediately going to go do it. You know what I'm saying? So basically, if you want them, if you want to kind of separate that from marriage and sex and all that, when you're young, you gotta learn how to use protection. That's about it. Because financially, you can't afford marriage. You know what I mean? And you're not finna tell the teenager that's 16, you're not finna tell the boy that's 16, 17 years old, you know what I'm saying, that's hormones is pretty much attacking him like, you know what I'm saying, C19. You know what I'm saying? You're not finna tell him that he ain't finna go try to get none. So the best you could do is do the most logical thing and teach him, hey man, use protection. Use protection. Use protection. That's how I got to where I was at. You know what I mean? I didn't have my son till I was 30.
I have a quick question for you. Just a quick question. Do you think, so we're talking about a 16-year-old kid. Do you think it would be easier to tell a 16-year-old boy who is actually focused on making it to the league to refrain from sex? Do you think it would be easier to keep him focused on what it is that he's doing versus a 16-year-old kid who's just out in the world and just doing whatever he doing?
I'm gonna be straight up. I'm gonna be straight up 100 watts. You said that would I tell a kid to refrain, to who's on his way to the league, to refrain from sex until he gets to the league?
I'm asking the question.
Absolutely not. I will not deprive that young man from being the star football team, the star football player that get all the girls. Do your thing, my G. Because I'm not gonna stop it because it's inevitable. Girls of any age, of any culture, they always flock to the alphas. Since we talk all this alpha shit, and you talking about that young man in that position, he's gonna be the alpha. All the girls gonna like him. Well, I'm gonna tell him not to do something. That's what I said. Like, it's hard to tell a teenager what not to do when it's sitting right there in their face, when it's easily accessible to them. Now, in that situation right there, no, it's gonna be almost impossible to get them to stop. You have to teach them protection. Got to teach them protection because we as parents want to stop it as much as possible, but everybody up here done been a teenager, and everybody up here done did a bunch of shit that their parents told them not to do. Excuse my language, but did a bunch of stuff that their parents told them not to do. Things that your mom and daddy probably repeated to you constantly. You know what I'm saying? So the best thing you could do is kind of teach them, you know what I'm saying? Teach them how to be smart in what they doing.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Yella. Hey, Stanley and then Queen and then Rico. Stanley, then Queen and then Rico, please.
I am scared and terrified of that question because I love sex, not giving up for nobody. No God, no parents, no beliefs, nothing. And when I was a teenager, I was on that 304, that highway, because I was messing with grown women. I was 19 with a 38-year-old girlfriend. And I ain't messed with no girls because they had no place to have sex at. I found the loophole. Pray for me, Rico. My mom busted me out when my girlfriend came pick me up. Because I had a 14-year-old stepson. She was not having it. She threw herself in front of my girlfriend car and told me to get out. So I am that son that you had to worry about because I found loopholes. Lord, I shouldn't be here because I just, I was, like I said, like I learned a lot from Mr. Marcus and Jake Steed.
He's for the streets.
And I was out there with grown women. Grown. So, you know, but everybody was in college and dorm room. Huh?
You said you was for the streets.
I didn't hear that. Oh yeah, I was in the streets. I was, yeah, man. It was, and plus, I'll say this: what messed me up. It was hard for me to deal with women my own age because I was already sexually matured, and so it was really hard for me to relate with a girl in college because I was already there. And it was just hard. Like it continued to be hard until, man, to like, woo. It's still hard sometimes because I prefer older women. It's hard for me to date with a 40-year-old. Like I want my woman to be like 56, 60. I be seeing some old women. I'm like, come on, grandma, let's go. And I got, it's just been hard for me to deal with my own age or younger because I've already had that experience. And it was like, here I was, 16 years old, and my girlfriend was a 19-year-old stripper. At 16, I'm Rico.
You were living the fucking life. You my hero.
Come on, Rico.
That's living the life.
Right. I want to be like 17-year-old you when I grow up.
No. But I was 18 years old with a 24-year-old girlfriend. So it's like it was hard because I was already so sexually matured. I missed out on a lot of stuff. A lot of my friends turned 21 in nightclubs. I was already in nightclubs at 17. I was already grown. So on that aspect, I wish I did slow down, but because I missed out on relating with my peers on that level. I got turned out.
That, Stanley. That was a whole lot to. Yeah, that was a whole lot to take in. Pause. But I mean, that was a lot. That was a whole lot right there, boy.
That was
I ain't gonna lie
honest.
to you. Hey,
But
Queen.
no, it's honest.
Hey, Queen. I appreciate your honesty, but I'm gonna need Queen to give us I'm a refresher. We're gonna wipe all that filth off real quick. Queen, you're gonna get a shower right here. Queen, come on, clean us off, Queen.
I need a bath
because I got stripper juice on me right now.
Wow.
Smell like baby oil in here.
What was the question? Can you repeat the question about?
Okay, what it was we were talking about people should wait for marriage, and
okay.
A lot of the talking points in the red pill community are about getting married, waiting for marriage, all that kind of stuff. But our hormones are kicking in our teenage years. Our bodies are ready pretty quick, and it's hard to resist those urges. So how do we reconcile telling people to wait until 30, and in Stanley's case, 40 and 50, when you're having these hormonal rages at 15, 16, 17 and ready to go? Like, how do we resolve that? Because it's hard to you can't just talk somebody through it. Wait till you're 30.
Well, I think it's not about preventing someone from doing something. My mom worked in a hospital, so she saw a lot. So she saw those raging hormonal preteens and teenagers in their pregnant, STDs, all kind of stuff. So she came home and she would immediately talk to us. It's 6 of us. It's 4 girls and 2 boys. So there was a lot of raging hormones in the house. I think it's just having a conversation. Like, just because you have the urge to do something doesn't mean you should do it. And I think, when we lead by our emotions and our urges, it's not going to set us up for success. And you want to teach teens and preteens, not necessarily, just be abstinent, but you want to teach them self-control, because you got to have self-control. You have to learn that. You learn that as a kid, actually, as a baby, when you throw in your little temper tantrums because you can't get what you want. You don't just get it. You're made to wait. So it's nothing different. So I think it's just teaching, making sure that you're ready for it. Some kids, some people, young kids, I've worked with them. They're hormonal and they're running around here and they're not mature mentally to deal with it. And so they run to other things they run to addictive behaviors to control it, which means that now if you're at age 13, you're running around having all this sex and you get heartbroken, you run to drugs. Now, mentally, emotionally, at the age of 30, you are emotionally a 13-year-old because you weren't taught to mature. You stunted your maturity. So I just think it's a balance. I think, like I said before, everything's a balance. I don't think you should rush and run and just salt your wild oat like a jackhammer in a wood factory. But you also need to be able to be mature enough to deal with the emotional pain that comes with that, because some people can't handle that, so yeah.
And I appreciate your balanced and nuanced perspective, and giving us a little reset real quick. Because Stanley, Stanley,
Yeah, Stanley.
I'm sorry to say, no.
Stanley.
Those older women, I was very mature. Like I think it's a little different for men and women, because the older women I was with, like, man, I had access to cars, to the house. I'm going on trips. I got treated like a little prince.
You in Cali, right?
This happened in Florida and California. Florida and California.
Okay, so next year I'll see you at Amber Rose.
Those women could go to jail too, Stanley. So they take you on a trip, but they could be behind bars for what they did.
So Stanley,
don't
next
play
year,
yourself.
I'm gonna see you at the slut walk, right?
For a reason.
What you mean? They were training me for marriage.
Let's get away from this.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Don Harden and Victor Freeze Music. We appreciate you for showing up tonight. Thank you both for being here. If you wanted to come up, I know, Vic, you see your boys up here. If you want to come up and give your perspective, we'd be happy to have you. Don, you as well. We love to have you.
Saved your ass, Stanley.
Who? What? Oh, Stanley. Hi, you too. Hey, Rico, real quick, after you go, after you answer the question, when we get to the next question, we're going to move on to the we're going to put the 3-minute timer on the next one. Go ahead, Rico, if you wouldn't mind answering that question.
My only thing is,
Marcus Rodriguez, I didn't shout you out, man. Marcus Rodriguez, we've been talking about you the whole time, man. I shouted you out. I apologize. Hey, Marcus Rodriguez, thank you also for being here and participating in the chat. Appreciate you for being here, brother. Yeah. Go ahead, Rico.
As far as my thoughts on the comment, the horse done left the barn. I think it is like I think the people who speak on this, the whole matrimony thing, while I do agree with it, they're hypocritical as hell too, because in the next breath, they're all a bunch of Stanleys anyway. They all are Stanleys, like free 70s hippie, free love, sex, and rock and roll and everything else mentality. But then at the same time, on the left hand and on the right hand, trying to preach this save yourself for purity. So they want everybody else to save themselves while they go out here and get their hot boy, hot girl summer on. And the reason why I think even for the young kids that I think the horse has left the barn simply because I think that we're an over-sexualized society. I'm like 13, 14-year-old kids now are on IG. And once they get on IG, it's a wrap. I can imagine what I could have been like 14 years old seeing what I see on IG when I was in high school. And we running around with magazines. I mean, that was my little porn was Jet magazine to see the centerfold, the woman in the bathing suit, and we'd lose our mind. Like, oh, things like that. So at that level, we were trying to keep our hormones in check, and it was a chore. But with what kids have access to today, and we're an over-sexualized society. I
want to challenge that. I want to challenge that real quick, because we also had access to that too, because we had AOL and we had AOL chat. And those chat rooms was hot and steamy. AOL.
I didn't have any of that. All I had was Jet magazine.
Stop. Don't act like Freaknik wasn't going on.
Not for me.
Yes.
How old is
Atlanta.
Freaknik?
Oh, Freaknik came out. We talking about that's the 70s,
late
80s.
80s,
You guys
early
are having
90s.
all that.
I was already a grown man.
Oh yeah.
Then. I'm talking about teenager.
So
I'm
Freaknik just popped
57.
up.
I'm almost 60. That's what I'm saying.
There was
Hey, gentlemen, hold on. You guys over talk Queen. I didn't hear what she said. Queen, could you go ahead and say what you're saying?
there was I think his name is CK Kyles or something, the high value nurse. He was on one of the panels and he was talking about, as a nurse, he's seeing a lot of young men later on because of them being exposed to a lot of sexualness, that they're developing erectile dysfunctions at an early age because of the maturity of their body and doing too much of something. So, I think there's a balance, and like I said, there should be a balance in everything. There were a lot of things that I was exposed to, but the one thing that always stuck to me was the talks that my mother would have with us, and respecting, the women in my life, the older women. They showed me that, my body is to be respected and not everyone deserved it. So it wasn't that I didn't party or go out. I just refrained from a lot of things because I saw a lot of my friends get hurt or get traumatized because they weren't ready for something. It's like, why rush into something because you got this cute little horny boy that's telling you he love you, and so what? Love ain't. He don't know what love is. He just wants to get his rocks off. And if you want to go get his rocks off, there's a rock garden down the street. Go get it off. You ain't getting it off on me. So yeah, I think we have to teach our young girls to value themselves, and we got to teach these young boys to respect our young girls. And yeah. So too many people want to pressure
I think
people
you're talking about
to
like
do something.
But
you're
what
talking
I
about
was just
CJ Kyles, the high
Yeah,
value
yeah,
nurse, CJ Kyles.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
but
And
what I
what
was
he talked about was like overstimulated from pornography, and there was
Yeah,
masturbating.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's what I'm saying is I think now because this generation, and I don't see us putting the genie back in the bottle, they have access to all of this sexual stimuli, whether it's uh, all the free porn on the internet, the IG, which is pretty much soft
Ridiculous.
porn, right? So you have
What is
so
it? Fans only pages
yeah,
and
OnlyFans. You have
yeah.
so, and that I was saying is for me coming up, we had 1/100. Literally for us, it was I came up in the age of magazines. There was nothing sexual on television. Basically, if you could get an adult magazine, by the time I got to it, it'd be all sticky, all balled up, and because you get one person with the magazine, you pass it around like gold. And the only other thing we got access to was every month I was like waiting on the new Jet magazine to see the Jet Beauty of the Week. So we didn't
No, Jet
have
was every week. Ebony was
yeah.
once a month.
Oh,
Jet
right.
was every week.
So that was the closest we came to at a young age having access publicly to eroticism. Other than like I used to read erotic magazines, you'd have to read the words to get stimulated because they didn't have a lot of pictures. Those books with the damn big blonde white guy. What's his name? And he was on the cover of every book, those romance
Fabio.
novels. So, but now the kids now they actually middle schoolers have access almost to borderline porn. So how we put that back in the bottle is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we want to have earlier sexual promiscuity. It's just too. I feel bad, but it's almost too late. We need to go to a damn mountain.
Rico, I disagree with what you're doing right now.
What's that?
What you're doing is back in my day, we didn't do none of that. Y'all
No,
kids
no,
right now.
I'm saying
No,
we
listen,
didn't have
listen. Let me
access.
listen to what I'm saying to you. Listen to what I'm saying to you.
Fabio. Thanks, Chef. Go ahead.
Because a lot of the older generation that I have around me, they didn't have the access. Yes, they didn't have a cell phone in their hand, right?
Yes.
You're very true on that.
Right.
But those same magazines that you're talking about,
Yeah.
those were getting passed around at school.
Yes.
Y'all were meeting up with each other to all sit and look at the same magazine.
Yes.
So y'all, it's the same. It's the same exact thing, Rico.
Right. I was just saying
the only thing is it just gets passed faster because
Right.
boys are gonna be boys. Horny
No.
little boys are gonna be horny little boys. So we all meet up with each other and we do the same thing. I just feel like what you're doing is separating the actual act.
No, I wasn't trying to do that. I was just trying to speak to the degree.
I got you. I got you. Look, this is what I'm saying. The act of boys sharing that sexually explicit content with each other, it's the same thing. The only difference is instead of it being a magazine, it's my phone now. So I can text Marcus the same link that I'm looking at instead of having to wait to get to school tomorrow. But it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. The same thing that y'all was doing in middle school when y'all was passing magazines around is the same thing these middle school kids are doing now when they're texting links back and forth to each other to these websites. I was about to shout one out, but I didn't want to do that to the platform.
Well, what I'm saying is, Wattz, I agree 100%, and what you're saying is what I was trying to say. All I was saying is because of the proliferation. So now where we had one magazine to pass around, every kid got 20 magazines. I'm saying the access is so wide is what's making the problem. Because if I had the one magazine, if some parent could take that magazine away, now we're all screwed. But the access is what the problem is. Because we were horny little boys. I'm telling you, I lost my virginity at 14. So I was no better than Stan. Yeah, I did. But it wasn't to a 20-year-old stripper. It was to another little 14 pissy girl. Okay, she was age appropriate. But I did lose my virginity at an early age in an urban environment. But what I'm saying is the access is what I see the problem because it's just too proliferated.
Okay, now let me do this. Let me ask you this question. And to Stanley and to Rico, to both of y'all, because y'all both have this a story close to the same. What were you doing at 14 that mattered? Were you focused on anything in terms of your purpose and growing yourself, a sport, a profession? Were you focused on anything other than girls at 14 years old?
Nothing that was going to override trying to get them girls.
I'm not talking about overriding. I'm talking about were you focused on anything of purpose, anything of substance? Were you focused on anything of substance at that age?
Nah, not really.
And I think that's the problem. Yeah, we're not putting our children in anything that is of substance at that age. All we doing is, you know what? You're gonna get you some box. So here goes some condoms, son. Instead of saying, you know what, son, instead of you focus on getting some box, let's put you in karate. Let's put you in a STEM program. Let's put you in something else to focus your time other than trying to get you some buns, cuz.
That I definitely think will help. I think that absolutely will help. I agree with that.
That's all I'm saying.
And I came from a family who, as Stanley said earlier, and R'Shaun said we were unattended to, so we were left to raise ourselves. So, you know,
so mine wasn't this free 14-year-old. So mine's actually a little bit darker because I was molested by women early on in life. So sexually, it was already there for me probably at 2 years old. So I had grown women that was already using my body because I didn't know what was going on. So at 13, I'm already like growing. And, you know, if you ever see me in person, like I'm just country boy thick. Like I'm just big and lift stuff like bam, bam, just lifting. Like I don't know what's going on. So it's always been like this secret, like, hey, let me take care of you, but don't tell nobody. They wouldn't understand. And I knew, I was like, okay. And I just went with it because it wasn't like I had a friend I couldn't talk to and tell her, hey, this was going on, because the Black community, we didn't talk about that, you know? Because what happened is like when somebody, we already seen what happened to girls when the girls get touched, she gets sent away. I didn't want to get sent away. So when you got touched, you got sent away to Jamaica or to Haiti. You got sent away. I didn't want to get sent away, so I learned to keep secrets. It wasn't until later when it's like, wow, like there was a book called The Learning Tree, and that woke me up like, oh man, I'm having sex. let me benefit from this then, because it's already was happening and it was like an out of body experience to now where it's like, okay, well, if she invites me over, like make sure I get something. So sex was exchanged, sex was learning, sex was like I got access to stuff that other people didn't have, and it was a secret. It was mine. I couldn't share with anybody, so that was my stuff.
I mean, like I said, let me say this first thing. I'm sorry that happened to you, especially at an early age. And I know oftentimes I have to remind myself, because we oftentimes think of victims of child abuse, especially sexually abuse, as being young girls, and we forget that it can happen to young boys. And no matter what, and I'm glad that you are a healthy young man, a healthy older man today. You could have turned out totally in a whole nother different way. And I'm just sitting there and saying, on the behalf of humanity, I'm fucking sorry. And I can't imagine that. And that shouldn't happen to anybody. And I'm glad to see you here today as a success story in spite of that.
Thank you.
So just
and sadly, it's like you can tell. And I just want to share with people, you can tell it's happening to your son is when you see him not get along with kids his own age. That should be a clue. Not knowing how to deal with kids opposite sex, his own age, and him just wanting to be with adults all the time. And those was clues that I didn't know until I had therapy, because there was always this disconnect with my peers. And where people like, oh, you have an old soul. But I like, yeah, I had an old soul because I was sexually turned on way too early. So sex was always in my head in the first grade, kindergarten. Like it was always there. It was there. I had to learn to turn it off. And it was difficult. And I had to deal with that my whole life.
Wow.
I was hoping if I can go. If I can say something real quick.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I just want to say, because I have a somewhat similar experience to what Stanley went through, especially when people that were close to you that you're supposed to trust, and it's supposed to be family members. And I went through that when I was a young age as a boy. Now, the difference is that I didn't think about sex until my hormones started kicking in when I was in middle school. And that's when I started somewhat thinking about it, probably towards the age of like 7th and 8th grade. Then once high school came, it was different. It was like, I'm looking at this mom over here as a quote unquote say mill for a teacher and stuff like that. And so I kept wondering in the back of my mind throughout the years, I was like, well, why am I more able to hang out, talk with older people as opposed to younger kids in my age group? So it's like things like that I had asked questions to, whether it was with the pastor or was a counselor, etc. So I had some issues when it came to that. But it did play a factor. Sex did play a factor. When I lost my virginity, I lost it to a woman twice my age. I was 18 at the time. She was about 36 years old. That played a factor. It's serious discussions that need to be had for both genders. They need to be had, and there's a certain seriousness to it. And sex can be as addicting as any drug or gambling addiction, etc. It can be, and it can be very negative if that's what your main objective is. If that's your main goal, you're not going to be productive, and it's going to take over you. And like Rico was saying earlier, there's many outlets to get sex, whether it's mail order brides, whether it's escorts, whether it's OnlyFans, going to the strip club, etc. There's outlets of it. And now you have the internet, which has been so incentivized, where it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It makes yearly on men, especially of men, because the men are the ones paying for it.
Wow. Thank you, Marcus, for sharing that. Because I know it takes courage for you and Stanley to talk about that. And I'm glad to see, like you said, that today that you guys both are in a healthier space. I'm glad to see that you. I can't imagine. I that's not an experience I dealt with, but I try to always put myself in a position of empathy to people who have been through their traumas, and if they share their story, you got to hear it, you have to let them speak to it. And anytime, this is a no shame space for men who's willing to come and share their story and tell their truth. We joke around, we play around, but we don't play around with things like that. And me and R'Shaun try to make our private time here about as much as about good information, good conversation, but also feel free to share here. This is a no judgment zone, and I'm proud of both of you. I'm proud of you being in the space you're in today. And if ain't nobody told you in a while, you guys are the example for the next generation. I don't even know what I would do if one of my kids came to me and told me what happened to them. So, I know you guys will be forever out there looking out for other young men for signs of that possibly happening, and definitely will be their hero. So that's a great thing. Thank you both.
Now, I will say this: the sad part, go ahead, Marcus. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I never told my father this, and I never wanted to take that away from my father because one of the missions in his life as a parent is to protect your child. Mm-hmm. So I never told my father to this day what happened to me because I did not want to feel like I destroyed that or took that from him. I'm never gonna tell him that. It's gonna die with me. I'm gonna make sure he has that for him because he was a great father and a great mentor towards me. So that's all I gotta say about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know when I talked to my mother about it, she blamed me for what happened. And she's also like, why I didn't tell my father? And my father, he's Latino, he will go crazy and kill somebody. So what would that mean for our family? Will I get into social services? Will I be put up into foster care? My brother get put in foster care, my sister. There was so many things that I'm responsible for. I had to keep it inside, to where it just exploded to where I wanted to harm myself. Where I couldn't share that because I know my father, he has that temper. And next thing you know, the machete will come out, and then that's it, and I'll get sent away. And that's a scary thing in Latin culture when you send people away. People don't, when those kids come back, it's they're a different person. And you wondering what happened to you in Cuba? What happened to you in Jamaica? What happened to you in Haiti? Because you're not the same person, and it stays with them. You don't know what kind of trauma that happened when they got sent away for something that wasn't their fault at all. But what I wanted to share, as a social worker, I took that energy and put into social work, and what I've seen, sadly, when it comes to boys, that when I did a report, so if I have a 15-year-old boy who was getting hustled by a 45-year-old man, the CPS report didn't care. They're like, well, it's consensual. And I'm like, well, if there was a girl that was 16 with a 45-year-old man or woman, you will send a report and you do something. We had a 15-year-old boy that wasn't going to school, and he was being pimped by a 24-year-old woman. Sadly, when I see him now, he's in his 40s, still hustling in the streets. She moved on to pimping younger men. But when I reported it, it meant nothing. And I would say with the system, when it comes to boys, for young boys, wherever I thought growing up, it was true. Nobody cared. I'm sorry. Nobody cared.
No, I mean, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry, Stanley, because it's true. It's true. And what I was going to say, I never had to experience what him or Marcus went through, and it's really deep. But I remember having a conversation with my second oldest son, and I used to tell him, because in my generation, I love the fact that mental health is a discussed topic now, at least, and at least they touching the surface of it. But I told my second oldest son, I said, I grew up with a lot of people and I dealt with mental health issues. And what we did oftentimes was we wouldn't report it because kids that I saw in grade school, friends of mine, I saw, they, as Stanley said, they would go away and we never saw them again. So you end up suppressing any problem. Like my son was like, Dad, sometimes I have voices in my head, and I had to tell him, I've been talking to myself all my life. And he's like, well, why do you never tell me? I said, because fucking we would go away. And I'm 57 years old and I still think about that. I still think about friends of mine that was having problems and couldn't cope, and we just never saw them again. So I know what he's saying about that is true. And I know what Marcus is saying. That part I know is true. I haven't had their experiences, but that lived fear of telling somebody that you need help, because people are not quick to help you. They create more harm and more trauma where trauma already exists. So I feel your pain 1000% there. It fucking sucks. And especially if you're a person of color, it's even worse. Is you don't get the help that you want or you think you're going to get. You love your parents. It's just when we would report shit, it's just problems for everybody times 10. And then sometimes you would get your parents that would tell you that. They would put that burden on you. You call the people, I'm sorry that, things went here. I know that we didn't, but you know what, guys? If we needed to talk about this tonight, the hell with our questions. The hell with our questions. This was not a conversation that we had set up to talk about, but I'm glad that we are. I'm glad that we are. We need, because I don't know how to go out and seek people to say, hey, come tell your story. But the fact that you guys did it organically, it took a lot. I know it's a lot of love. And I feel good that at least we created a space that you felt like you could come and do that. That's important.
I appreciate that.
You guys feel like you can come in. Because like I said, it ain't going to be no fucking judgment.
Thank you.
There ain't going to be no judgment here. So,
I'm when I share this,
felt comfortable to share it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I don't want this to be like a pity story or like a victim story. I want people to understand. It happens to both of us, and sometimes people get mad at me when said, "Well, why don't you speak the hell up earlier years ago?" I was like, "Well, I was just a child, and for me, I didn't take it as a moment of pleasure when I was getting it. It was a moment of, well, am I supposed to trust this person? Am I supposed to look to this person? I can't tell my dad because at that time, my father was still a legal immigrant. If I tell him, like Stanley said, my dad's going to explode and go with the machete and go to cinder block or something, go crazy. And especially with the people that were doing it to me, they were so close that I thought that I still trust, and I still forgave them at the end of the day, and I moved on. But it's something that's very tough because I almost experienced the same thing when I was deployed one time over there in the Middle East, but I managed to avoid that situation and people helped me along the way. But it's just one of those things that it's crazy when it plays an influence on you, and it's crazy when certain scars stay with you, and the images like that, they don't go away. They don't go away.
Just like Marcus, like my father's immigrant. Like, where can I go? Who can I talk to? No one, because you're already scared that the teacher might report you for being an immigrant and you're gonna get deported. I have to act American. I have to be American. I gotta act American. No accent. Just talk like American and don't cause any problems.
I just want to say I appreciate Rico and I appreciate this platform. I don't really talk about this stuff. I rarely ever do. I opened up about something like this on Daryl's platform with Daryl Long, and it was what happened over there when I was deployed in the military. But this is the first time I'm saying it out loud here on a platform when it came to family when I was a young boy. So I just want to say appreciate it.
No. I appreciate you, feeling comfortable. I mean, I don't want you guys to feel like, you owe us your story, because you don't. Your story is your story. I appreciate that you feel comfortable enough that at least me and R'Shaun made you guys feel like, look, if there's anywhere I feel comfortable that I can share this story and there's going to be no judgment, that we at least created the space for that. And I've always, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about these people out here, because I know that there are 1,000 more Marcuses and Stanley out there. And if there's a space, I'll welcome them all. Look, come here, share your story. We'll take the time. I'll listen, because we all, and I know, you carry that burden. And unfortunately, Marcus, I don't even have to tell you, or you, Stanley, you guys are going to carry that burden for the rest of your life. But maybe by talking about it, we can learn how to help to cope with it along with your story, and at least know that there are other people out there like you. Is the best thing we can do is to show you that you are not alone, brother. You ain't alone, and you didn't do nothing wrong. And just like Stanley, you didn't do anything wrong, and it wasn't your fault. Now you know that because it happened to Marcus. Marcus, you didn't do anything wrong, and it wasn't your fault. People, unfortunately, people that we love and we're close to and we know the best, those are generally our victimizers. Me and R'Shaun was talking about it earlier. 99% of our victimizers are people that are fucking close to you, and that makes it hurt 100 times worse. People that you love hurt you in a way, and it's tough. But knowing that there's a brothership not that you wish someone else went through it. It takes away that, hey, it only happened to you. It takes that pain away. That, hey, it's not just you. It wasn't your fault. And in this space, you can know that we good. You'll never have to talk about it again. Or hopefully, if someone else brings it up, you'll have empathy for them. Because, like I said, I love the fact that you're a social worker, Stanley. So it may be some other guy, young man, older man, whatever, in here with a problem. You can reach out to him. You ain't got to tell him what you went through, but you understand. That's all. That's a big thing. And again, thank you, for feeling you can share here. But go ahead, R'Shaun, 1 second. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, Marcus and Stanley, I also wanted to say the same things Rico was intimating a moment ago. I appreciate how hard it is to be vulnerable in a space. So I respect and admire your courage and being able to share your stories. I mean, that's a very real thing. As Black men, we're kind of conditioned to do the exact opposite. So, or men of color. I want to, Marcus, I don't know where you are, but as men of color, we definitely are sometimes conditioned not to be
absolutely
and honest. Again, I did want to thank you for sharing, and I did also want to ask if you had the capacity or ability. We had a question from the chat from Miss Christina D, and she did say, "I hope this isn't insensitive, but what can women do to support men's struggles? Assault is so underreported among men, domestic violence. So, is there something the allies, the women that love us, can do to assist us, even if it's just being more aware?" Or in action? Like, is there anything that you two can shed light on or willing to, even if you're, if you're willing to take on this question? Marcus and Stanley.
Well, I think just in general, like, for example, when a police comes to report an assault, it could be domestic violence, it could be battery, whatever, etc. They look at a man and they say the man is the one of strength, the man is the stronger specimen, so they look at him as the more of the abuser or the more dominant one in that space. That's an issue that needs to be said, and I think that's where there's a huge problem that stems. Like, reports always never get taken seriously. When a man comes into the police station saying, "Oh, like a woman beat me up," or "a woman took all this and that," they don't take it as serious as opposed to where if a man were to do it, that's the issue. I think they need to be taken more serious, more in effect. And when it comes to these stigmas, these stereotypes of, oh, the man is supposed to brush it off and walk it off. But there's a certain level where you can't brush it off anymore, though. There's a certain level where if that line is drawn, please take it serious and take the time out to at least listen. At least if you can listen, that'll make a change. And then after that, the consequences can come with it for the opposite sex.
I will say, for me, well, I appreciate like the women in my family. They were more active. Queen, Queen, remember, like the one girlfriend I did get out of church. The first thing my family asked was, "Do she beat me?" Because there was always that's the first thing they asked, because they had to make sure that this woman wasn't violent, because they don't play when that happens. And I think for the culture itself, there's a lot of women who don't take that serious, and they don't see that women can be predators and abusers. But if your family see that happen to the other men in the family, I'm proud of the women in my family. They take on that mantle of like, no, you might think this is love, this is not love. We need to talk about it. It's not okay for her to be domineering, and that's not okay. That's still abuse. And I think we don't take that stuff serious, because when you hear the manosphere is yelling and screaming, what I see is like, man, there's something that happened to you that nobody listened to you before. For women, you might see like this person might have a PTSD where he's reliving the trauma and at the same time dealing with the argument that you guys are having. And what he probably feeling like he's expressing it, like he couldn't express it before, and now he's reliving it while he's dealing with the stuff that's in front of him. And it goes unchecked, because mental health for men really goes unchecked. Like our learning disabilities goes unchecked. Everything's go really unchecked when you're a guy. You're just the aggressor and aggressive, and that's it. But there's nothing to like, where is this coming from? And that's the sad part about it. So I don't want women to be in that space where she is mama boying the man that she's dating and don't want that to happen. But it does take like, hey, if you find a man that's been abused and he's not ready for a relationship, you gotta set your pride aside and maybe not date him and just be his friend. It might be not something that you want to do. If you still want to date him, then step aside and make sure he has friends and just do check-ins. Because if you still want to date him, that's fine. I'm not going to tell people not to date. But you got to be a little bit more smart and crafty because you don't want him to depend on you for everything, because that's dangerous, because then he sees you as God, and that's not something nobody wants to be in a relationship with. They want that person to build their own skills and their own, their own support systems. So that's something that we have to take serious in all communities when we're dealing with men, that there is a lot of abuse. And I didn't want to say what I want to, like what happened in my past, like I looked like I was the guy, because it came from something. And Rico, you made it safe when you understood that book, The Learning Tree. And a lot of people don't understand The Learning Tree is in that first chapter. And I'm in the 10th grade, I'm 14, I'm reading it, and it finally made sense. And I'm crying in English class because I didn't know that this was happening to Newt. And I still remember that, the character, because it was so important, because there was nobody for me to talk to about it. And you gotta understand, you're carrying stuff with you that no 2-year-old should be doing in the first place, having sex at 2. The most embarrassing thing is that you're 5 and you have to explain to your doctor, a 5-year-old, to why you're busting nuts in your underwear. That's not normal, but you have to keep it hidden, and you have to carry that, and nobody's explaining to you your body, life, and everything. And that book, for the first time, was something for a guy to understand life and your body change and sex and everything else. It was like my first, I remember girls had this book like Sweet 16 or whatever, but for a boy, it was like, oh my God, especially a Black boy, this book, this everything that happened in Newt's life was going on, and it just prepared me to change for a positive direction. And I'm super grateful for The Learning Tree, because that was the best book I ever had in my life that really prepared me for teenagehood.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you think about it, and especially, like I said, the thing that's probably sticking with me is the age, of your assault, and we hear about those stories, and it's just like you struggle, like, okay, what's the mind of a monster that would do something to a child so young? Any child that young. But then, I mean, you and Marcus give me a lot of hope, because I'm like, these kids went through something that's just, life-changing, life-altering, destructive at that age, and he came through. And it's not easy. It'll never be easy. But the fact of the matter is, he came through, and I'm like, and I'm not even a very religious man. I consider myself marginally, that I believe a little bit spiritually. But then with stories like this, I'm like, in most instances, because in a lot of cases like that, people who have experienced what you've been through, they have high rates of suicide, drug addiction. So you're not drugged out like the guy you were talking about. He was at 15. That was abused. You were at 2. And look at the guy, he's 40 now, and he's still working the track and drugged out. And I understand that, because that's still traumatic. And because that's how like 95% of those stories turn out. They just don't make it. It's almost a living death sentence. Because, and I think we don't show enough sympathy for people who go like that. And I know I oftentimes think generally about generalized racism and poverty and things like that. But until I hear a story like you and Marcus, I oftentimes, like most people, we forget about people, especially, I never think about men being victims of sexual abuse. I'm going to admit it. And I have to start working on that better. I'll in a second think of a female victim, like you said. Oh, it's sexual assault, domestic violence. But it is, and I've had women put their hands on me. And if I had been what you've been through, yeah, it might be guys in jail right now who've been through it. I'm pretty sure a bunch of them are in jail. Woman hit them, snapped the PTSD. They knocked the shit out of them, killed them, and it's like, but they never got help. And we got to start critically thinking about these things a little bit more, and at least create spaces where men can come and talk. That don't cost that damn much. Well, I can't fix it, but me and R'Shaun can say, hey, anybody want to come here and talk about it, you can do that much. That don't cost us nothing. We're not talking about anything that's so important that we can't take the time if somebody want to call up and cam up and say, hey, look, this happened there. Come on, get it out. Get it out. Hell, I'm sitting at my table drinking anyway. I'll sit here all night and listen to you talk about it. Come on, let's do it.
Can I say real quick?
That space to make it comfortable for people to, and at least if nothing else, get it out and at least help you heal for today. Now you may have to still deal with it tomorrow, but you shouldn't have to carry that. If I can help you carry that load for one day, brother, I'll do it.
Can I say real quick that
I'm sorry.
In listening to y'all talk, it really made me realize that as a father, I need to readjust my approach, because mine's no, I don't play them games. I'll take a head off quick, but that's a wrong approach for it, because all that's doing is building a fear in them to want to talk. All that's doing is taking them away from wanting to speak about something that they're afraid of or something that may have happened to them. I have to readjust my approach. I have to make sure that they understand that the door is always open for you to come and talk. I need all three of them, because I have 2 girls and a boy. So this is not a gender specific thing. I need all 3 of them to understand that, for one, the door is open. You can come and talk to me. 2, you don't have to have any fear of repercussions. I'm not about to blame you for any of it. It's not your fault. It is not your fault that this happened. And then 3, I need you to understand that if you come to me and you tell me this, I don't need you to be fearful of something happening to me for it. I know that I have to control myself as their father if they ever come to me about something like that. Because as you're talking, like as you were talking, I'm literally sitting here listening, and I'm imagining this being one of my children. I'm imagining this being one of my kids. And of course, the first thought in my mind is, bro, I will put my foot through somebody's fucking mouth if I ever hurt. And that's like, and then you were talking about, like, I'm afraid of my father. When Marcus said I was afraid of my father getting deported, I'm like, damn, I'm pretty sure my daughter is sitting there thinking my father's going to end up in jail if I tell him this. I appreciate both of you fellas for sharing that, because it really made me have to rethink all of it. All of it. This goes from anything from assault to bullying to anything. I have to adjust my approach to all of it. And I appreciate you fellas for that. Both of y'all.
Hey, Marcus and Stanley.
Much love.
And thank you everybody for your words. I mean, all this stuff is landing in a good space, and I really appreciate all of y'all right now. I wanted to ask Marcus and Stanley another question, if I may, if you're comfortable. A lot of times, our situations are unaddressed, and we don't address them. But as both of you, I know, high functioning, military for Marcus, Stanley, business, all the things you've done in your lives. What if somebody else has not attended to their trauma? What steps would you suggest? Like, even if you were talking to an earlier version of yourself or another man who's going through something, what steps would you suggest to address it, to not let it fester within you?
I think Stanley could go first.
I saw it for the first time in my family. It was, I would say, like a couple years ago, like 7 or 8 years ago, where it was weird. I was at a family function. I haven't seen my family in decades. And what I saw for the first time, like it wasn't me. That, like when kids are around family, like how kids always go around, like, who are you and how are we related? Like stuff like that. Because it's a family function. So they all should be going out and talking to people. This wasn't it. For the first time, I saw like kids clinging to each other, hiding and running away from adults. These are boys and girls. I've seen boys hold on to each other and go to the bathroom in groups. We're talking like 5, 6, 8-year-old boys, 12-year-olds. Like nobody wants to talk to anybody. And it hit me like, wow, this is bigger than just me and my cousins that was going through it. This was everybody. This is big. What was good to see was like the other family members who acknowledged this and stop it. And was like, it's okay, like this is a safe place, we'll protect you. And that was good to see that there was a generation that was able to call it out and make it safe for them. And whoever the kids didn't feel safe about, or whoever the kids didn't feel safe around, we didn't question that person, but we're just like, yeah, you need to leave them alone right now. And just let that kid be a kid and let the kids do their thing. And watch for the children and just look out where each kids were going to and making sure each of the kids were safe. And that was good. To answer your question, that would be one of the things that could happen is just, man, keep your eyes open. Like me dating 17-year-old with a 24-year-old girlfriend or 18-year-old, that was a sign, because I could never really date a girl my own age, because a girl my own age, I was frustrated. She wants to wait to be kissed. I'm so used to like, we about to kiss, like hurry up, we got 25 minutes and I gotta send you home. I was so used to that when somebody my own age, I couldn't relate. Like, why are we kissing behind a car? Like, what is this stuff, right? But that's the clear indication when you're dealing with somebody and you see somebody, their age and their actions is not the same, because you shouldn't be 15 with a mindset of a 45-year-old. Like, that's not normal. And there's some stuff we call it like these little cute names, that's an old soul. And I'm just like, nah, that person gone through some abuse. Like, we got to call this stuff out. Like, stop giving cute names and get in there and figure out what's going on with this person. Because there's some stuff that's there and we overlook it because the quiet ones are expected to be the good ones. And I'm like, no, the quiet ones are carrying a lot of burden and guilt and fear, because they don't want to be the one that disrupt the family. So just look out.
Marcus?
Yeah, I think just similar to what Stanley was saying, I think you have to make the question was to how can we make an environment for people to go and seek advocacy? Is that what you're saying?
R'Shaun? You muted, R'Shaun. R'Shaun, you muted.
Yes, Marcus, I was just saying, like, would you suggest, like, what steps would somebody take, like, just from your own perspective, to function, like, to deal with it? What are some positive steps to move forward?
There's many forms of therapy, and whether it could be staying proactive, going to the gym, being part of a brotherhood. It could be somebody, martial arts. It could be yoga. Reading helps a lot. Learning books. It could be a paint class, an art class. I love cooking. That was one of my things as therapy, was cooking, being a chef. It could be careful with this next one, but it's going to the gun range and practice shootings. That some people, it's therapeutic for them. It could be a somewhat on the level. It could be tippy-toeing a little bit, but there's that as well. Boxing. And more importantly, seek an environment where it's comfortable and relaxed, such as this right here. An environment where it's relaxed and you have people who are willing to listen to you. I think that in itself is a huge factor of helping people, very therapeutic. Instead of going out to get pills and medicine, because I have all the symptoms, and I have anxiety, I've had PTSD, I've had more severe PTSD when I was about 6-7 years ago. It was more bad for me. Now I made PTSD my bitch, but now I'm in this space now where I could tell people that there's PTSD of all forms. It isn't just because you're a war vet or even the military. There's many forms of PTSD. I'm not the only one. And I think people need to understand that. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And more importantly, be in a space where if you're that person that can listen to somebody, because you never know what that someone is going through. You never know, just because you took the time out of your day to listen to that person, you could possibly be saving that person's life, help them from self-deleting themselves, you know? It makes a big difference.
Excellent. I mean, and I just want to say this to you guys, based on what Brother Wattz said before you both spoke. I hope you guys see how even the sharing in your message, it can help people who haven't even been. The first and foremost, your message is very powerful and very helpful to people who've been through what you've been through, or even things similar or in proximity to what you've been through. But it even helps those of us who haven't experienced, like Brother Wattz, who has 3 young children, and you educating him on things to look for, to think about. Like, look, I want to make sure that my kids don't have to carry the burden of what you guys had to carry if something ever happened to them, so I can help them. And I think about that too, and R'Shaun when he becomes a father, and so on and so forth. So it is, again, I'm not telling you to share your message. It's personal. Each and every person decide on their own, in their own time, in their own way. But I want you to at least say, hey, don't feel like, oh, I just spilled all my guts and I feel crazy. No, you guys did some good shit here tonight. You helped a lot of people. It might be somebody out there watching. It may be somebody that see it on a replay. It may be another parent. I hope a lot of people listen to it and hear what you guys have to say, because it is so important for people to understand, in particular, that men of color have carried that burden. I think there's so many more of us that are still walking around with it suppressed, repressed, untreated, didn't get therapy. And every time they see someone step up, they get a step closer to having that courage. And, you know, like, look, shout out, come over here to Knowledge and Relationships. See me and R'Shaun on our Wednesday night. And like I said, Brother Stanley, I know you and Marcus, I know y'all got VIP privileges any Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? And it might be somebody else that come over here and need help. And if they do, I would hope that you gentlemen would jump in and help us with them, because you guys are the expert, and I'm just doing the best I can. I'm not trained, but I'm just trying to show some compassion and some empathy. I have experience with pain on a different level, so I'm like, anybody should at least have the decency to empathize with another hurt soul if you've ever been hurt. So
I just want you to know, like, man, Rico, thank you. But like, you're a parent and you have experiences. Like, I have a brother who's autistic, so he can't verbalize, but I can tell when something is wrong with him. The same thing with my kid. Like, I have to watch her. If she has a play date and she's quiet and she's flustered, those nonverbal cues when your child comes back from a place that's not the same, it's like, okay, I just let her express whatever she needs to get through. Then we just go out, get hot chocolate, and I'm just like, I'm thinking about the next play date, we don't go there no more. And then like it opens the door for her, like, yeah, I don't like it there. There's a lot of kids. I got ignored. I'm hungry. And it's like, let her just, okay. And I'm like, there's those nonverbal, because a lot of time kids or even adults don't want to be negative. There's always this push for toxic positivity. Like, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to open up and share something bad, because now it's going to make you feel bad. I need to stay positive and happy. So there's this movement of toxic positivity. We don't want to cause anybody stress or burden. And that's not fair to a person, because now this person is carrying something they don't want to carry. It might not be that bad. It might not be bad. They need help processing it. But now is now manifesting as something that didn't have before, a tantrum. And you'll see grown people with tantrums, and tantrums like the rage of a toddler. I don't know if people have been around toddlers, but when toddlers are enraged, that's some scary stuff. And that's something we gotta like look at that and like, man, like something has happened because you didn't have this behavior before. it's okay to be nosy. It's okay to be a detective. Like, go in there, be a detective, and figure things out, and then allow that person to come out and talk. And if it's not a safe place, if you send somebody to a place like sports or something else, like they didn't like the team or the teammates don't work out for them, and they're quiet, okay, time to move them to another place. Because like sometimes the places that we think is safe is not safe. And sometimes not just only the environment, but the people that's there is not a good fit. And we gotta look for all that. Like, you don't have to be an expert. You can see it. Like, it's not a good fit. I just want to encourage everybody with that. Just look at the behaviors.
That's some gem. That's a gem. Well, it's getting late. Yeah. So I mean, up to this point, I think we've had a great conversation. I mean, with the questions, we took a turn, but we took. Hey, I don't think we could have ended it more positive. I'm uplifted like hell. I am. I mean, I feel really good. I'll admit the conversation turned, but it turned in a positive way. And I mean, I feel really great. I hope that the people in the chat and the viewers got something out of this, because I think to me, this is our best show, hands down, without question. I'll do this again tomorrow. But did you want to do another question, R'Shaun? It just doesn't feel appropriate. But
can I ask one more? I do have.
Yeah, real
quick,
quick, Wattz. I definitely am not jumping back into the red pill questions. But go ahead, Wattz.
For Marcus and Stanley, y'all spoke about the fear of speaking out to someone. If you did have the opportunity to be able to speak that out, and one of your family members did respond in, let's say, an aggressive manner, would that make you feel like you were protected, or would that make you more fearful? And it's just, and the only reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to build my understanding in terms of communicating with my own children.
Sure. So for me, it was a carrot on a stick. So I was told that if I did talk, I won't see my cousins again. Now, mind you, because I'm an immigrant, it wasn't like I was allowed to see friends after school. So my cousins and I, we were the same age. So they're like, well, you know how your father is. And if you do this, you're going to break your mother's heart because she don't have friends. And your sister's not allowed to have friends. And you're not going to see your cousins again. It was that was number one. And number two, we already had examples of cousins who were taken away and we'd never seen them again, like for 4 years. And that is the most scariest thing to know that, as children, here's how I knew, like, my father, he wasn't the most loving person, but that was his way of loving, right? To love. One time I asked my father, like, do you love me? And his response was, I let you inside the house. And I was just like, you know what? I'm too Americanized. This is who he is. Because that's, he's like, I feed you. I clothe you. What else do you want? And the fear of, like, man, if he leaves, who's going to do that for us? Like, where will we stay? And also, we're immigrants. So Haitians, like we were like the Mexicans of Florida. So nobody really liked Haitians. And also, like, I blend in. So I grew up with like a Haitian community that didn't like me because I didn't look like them. Both my parents were mixed. So they had a hard time fitting in with other Haitians. So they only fit in with their own family or the Cuban side. And I grew up in the African-American community. So I had to blend in. And I didn't have that freedom to be myself or to say anything about the fear of, social services meant that we're going to get pulled away because both my parents are illegal. We're going to be put in the foster system, or we're going to get deported. And I have a brother who's autistic, and I have a little sister. I'm the oldest. And that weight that I'm the oldest and I know what's going on, it wasn't like I could just go ahead and ask for help. Like, asking for help meant that I was going to destroy my own family. And that was my pressure.
Oh, sorry. Marcus?
Yeah, similar. Just so I can compare real quick a situation to answer Hunter wants. So, like my parents, they had gone through some domestic disputes themselves, and I remember a time when they both got arrested. And my mother was the one who was actually the instigator and the attacker in that part, but they ended up taking both my mom and my dad. And I still didn't speak up. I didn't say anything to the police. We were about to put in the foster care system, and it took my sister to come out to drive out from a different state to make sure we didn't land. She would have showed up hours late. We would have ended up in the foster care system. My parents got out, I believe, with time in, and then they made the lawyer helped them out to get out earlier. But they both got out. But that's an incident right there where I was just scared because I was about to just end up without my family. Now, when it came to what happened to me, if I had that opportunity to say something, I don't believe I would because of the serious ramifications of it. It would be similar. And it would be similar because, for one, my father has been deported. I've seen it. I've seen where I serve. Border Patrol has shown up and taken my dad once. And then there was times where it happened I was at school. I didn't see him for a while. And he had to go get a coyote, make sure he came back to the States. He's in Mexico now, but it was very tough because my father was a breadwinner. He was a breadwinner. My mom wasn't. My mom was an American-born citizen, and she wasn't the breadwinner. She was more traditional, I guess, in that way, in that sense. And it was tough. My father, he's just like, hey, just let you know that if it ever happens to me, because it could happen to me again, there's socks right there filled with thousands of dollars right there saved up, just in case anything were to happen to me. Here's a number from Mexico to call me if I were to get deported for any and everything. Because when they deport you, they grab all your stuff, they auction it off, they take you as you are with your stuff. Your property no longer belongs to you. And it was tough and scary. So that's why I couldn't say anything, especially with the way how my dad would react similar to his Stanley. He comes out with the machete. You know, Mexicans, they don't play around. They bring the broom, they bring the pan, they bring the whole family, recipe. And they don't play like that. And I know for my father, especially with who was the person who did it to me, it was one of the most closest people that I thought was ever. I'm just lying there in bed, and I'm just thinking I was just in shock, more like, what am I supposed to do? Just take this? And I was always known as the respectful son who was obedient to my parents. And as they did, if I did disobey, it was the rod that I got. And so that's why I didn't say much, and I was never the person to speak out loud. I've always avoided drama. I know it's never want to be drama, but there are opportunities I missed because I didn't speak up. So, and to answer your question, I wouldn't. It's a double-edged sword for me.
This is, again.
And I'll add one more thing to it. I just want to add one more thing to it. Like, for me too, like, I also had to deal with the fact that now I'm addicted to sex. And it was hard. Like, it was like I'm a hypocrite because I'm a teenager. And again, if I did not read the learning tree, I was dealing with so much guilt because I did not understand, like, why was my body so out of control at 13? And I thought I was going to go to hell, and there was like all this anger, and I had to hold it in. I'm the oldest. I'm also the quiet. I'm the most respectful son. I'm a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm like, I need to have sex. But it's wrong for me to have sex. There was nobody to talk to. And then nothing made sense. Nothing made sense until I read the book. And I was able to, like, now go into the abuse and know that when it was not my choice, like, it's not my choice, and check out. So I had this thing with, say, those daydreaming. I just got into this thing of just checking out. And sometimes I just check out for hours or a full day, where people are like, oh, he got demon possessed. I'm like, no, like, I just checked out. I just gone to abuse. I don't want to think about it no more. And I just check out. It was just one of those things I developed as a kid. But that was how I was able to make sense, because the pressure, it was way too much, especially when you're an immigrant. It's just too much, because you find out something about America. America does not like immigrants. You hear the immigrant stories, but when you're an immigrant yourself, you learn, like, they don't like immigrants, and there's levels of immigration too, and you learn, like, man, I gotta keep quiet. And also for me too, I'm about to graduate I'm now getting my green card, which is big, which meant like I can get a job. Later on, I'm going to be 18 soon. I can't afford to mess up my family and myself. And that pressure was real. Like I could not say anything. Even now, just the best the human thing now is like to see my abusers and to see how little they are because they're old, and just to feel sorry for them because this probably happened to them too. Not negating what they did was wrong, but to see what was going on in my whole entire family, like wow, like this stuff is a curse. This was going on, and God took me out of there and put me in California where I was protected and loved and saw normalcy for the first time. And I said that was the best thing about leaving the South to come to California was I was normal. I'm allowed to speak up. I can speak out. I can get help. What happened in Florida is happening in Florida. Is not happening in California. Hopefully that answered your question, 100 Wattz.
Hunter Watts, you were going to say something though?
It did. No, again, I want to say that I appreciate y'all because for me, moral and not to and please don't take any disrespect to this, but like the moral of the story is that for me, immigrant or not, as a man, protecting your family is about more than putting your foot in somebody's ass. It requires more than just being aggressive. It requires more than having a gun. It requires more than these type of things. I appreciate y'all because I have to I have to readjust. I have to eat my pride, my anger, all of that. It's a readjustment. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that because you're a father, so I know you have to protect your kids no matter what, and that goes through every father's minds is making sure that part of their mission in life when they have a kid comes into this world is you're willing to live and die for your child. And by any means necessary, but it's right. You have to be smart. You have to be tactical.
I ain't about to die for him, but I'll take somebody's head.
I get you. Kids want to protect their fathers. Kids want to protect their family. Kids want to protect their moms. Kids want to protect their siblings, and that's the flip side of it. Because we understand the importance of having a dad. Because once you have a dad, you see how it is really for kids who don't have fathers. You see the importance of fathers, and that's something. I remember last show I mentioned. Me and Rico, we joked about it. Like I was like, Father's Day is not a second Mother's Day, and I meant it because like there's something about having a man in the house, and it's a real thing to have a man in the house because there's a security that you don't get when you don't understand it until you have a man in the house, and you feel very secure and safe from what's on the outside, and you don't want to give that up.
You know what strikes me though, and it just sort of like just in the last couple of minutes, it just sort of like resonated with me, and I think for you and Marcus, and I'm like, it's funny. In each instance, they're the victim, and at the same time, they're the only protectors. So they got victimized, and they're protecting their family through their silence, through their stoicism. Just you guys endured something, like you said, because there's layers to this. Being born here, I think Wattz he served, is born here, or something. So you think we don't have that fear of the deportation of the family. So there's so many layers to it. And I was like, and then like Marcus said, knowing what your father's going to do, but I'm trying to protect him from being deported or killing somebody, going to jail. So I'm like, and it's kind of, and then even the third part of it is, it's like, you guys were the victims, you're the protectors, and you even find yourself getting to the space of being the forgiver. As like Stanley just said, I don't know about you, Marcus, but Stanley said he's at a space of now forgiving them. They're old. I feel sorry for them. And I'm like, man, that takes a level of strength that I don't know if I have. I don't
Yeah, I
know if
forgave
I
them.
have.
I forgave them a couple years ago. It wasn't that long ago, but I forgave them, and even throughout the process, I'm working on that because talk about what Hunter Watts was saying about pride and ego, and that has been man's Achilles heel, I believe, for as long as day of time, the beginning of time, and I didn't want to be the cause of it, even though I wasn't, like you said, my fault. I didn't bring that upon me, but it happens. I always say good things happen to bad people that don't deserve it. Bad things happen to good people that don't deserve it. And somehow in the middle, you try to find the cosmic balance of it, and you try to even it out, and you just live every day. And before, I felt like I was whenever I went through things, I just felt like I was carrying this shield and putting on this mask to just laugh and have joy in life, to make other people laugh. And that's why I said it on the 100 Watts podcast and Finesse Visions. Shout out to your channel. But I said that I was like, humor and laughter is kind of like that laughing towards misery and towards the pain you've been through. And it's kind of like owning it and finding the joy in life, no matter through the hardship, is it's priceless in itself. And it's in a beautiful way. It's very healthy, I believe. So that's why I look at things through a more positive light that way.
When people, yeah, Marcus, I'll say this, like when people see me smile and happy, they're like, man, what you laughing about? Or what you happy about? Like, my God, I survived. Like, I survived. Like, I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm here. I'm happy. Like, I survived. Like, I survived all this. And like, no matter what happened, like, you cannot take away the security I built from all this stuff. Like, I survived, and I know I'm loved.
Yeah.
I know I'm protected. I know I'm cared for. And it's just a feeling like I wake up every day just happy that I'm not in that same place. And it's a lot. Like it's a lot of stuff I'm just happy for that I would never thought that it would happen.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marcus. Go ahead.
I just hope. I want to thank all you guys out here. I know I'm going to be heading out though, but I do appreciate this platform. I shout out your channel, Knowledge and Relationship. Shout out to OG Rico, R'Shaun, 100 Watts. I shout out to your channel, Finesse Vision. Shout out to Stanley. Shout out to Queen Forever. I know she's been quiet for a while. I feel selfish for taking up the time. I apologize for that.
Don't.
Sorry about that, Queen.
I'm good. Don't worry about me.
But I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you guys, and I do got to be heading now. I got to get up early, but I do appreciate you guys, and I'll bump in next time. I'm sorry for coming in late. I wanted to come in earlier, but I was busy with a few things.
That's okay. Look, just as long as you know we here, and it don't have to be on a Wednesday. Next time, I'll make sure you get our contact, me and R'Shaun, and you can reach out, man. I mean, anytime to me. Shoot me an email, a text, whatever the case is. But know you got a home here. Like I said, we don't do no judgment. This is a safe space to talk about anything. And again, I say, you guys tonight are my hero to do it on 3 levels, because I know generally most victims are automatically seeking justice. But like I said, it crossed my mind to see you guys be the victim, the protector, and the forgiver. That's a level of strength that I don't know if I possess. And I'm proud of you both, and you're my heroes. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. And I know you guys have helped somebody either tonight or tomorrow night or the next night. Your story will be heard. It will be felt. It's some kids out there, some young men out there. I pray to God that they see this message and know that they will be all right, just like you two are as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Marcus,
Thanks again, Marcus.
Thank you, and have a great night. Go ahead, Queen.
Much love to you guys.
Yeah, much love to you.
What y'all want from me?
We want to hear your words of wisdom, sister.
What is there? Because I know R'Shaun wanted to get back on this red pill.
We're not doing that tonight.
Okay.
The
You
red
good?
pill is done for the night.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say I think Mr. Joseph, you already know. You already know how we feel about you on these streets over here, Queen Forever, and you know the other half. I'm not gonna say the name. Um, much love for you and Marcus sharing your story. I think it's unfortunate because, like you said, when it's a young man being abused in that way and violated, it's not looked at or taken as seriously as it would be if it was a young lady. Um, I think about, I think it was, what was it, Jeffrey Dahmer, when the black guy ran out of his house naked and the cop just took him back to the house, or what, I forgot who it was, right? And it was like, oh, it's just a domestic dispute. And I'm like, it's nothing domestic about someone running out of a house screaming and being naked, whether it's a male or female. So I just think it's pushed under the rug, and it's so, it happens so much more than we can even imagine because it's so it doesn't get its justice because it's not reported or it's not taken seriously when it is reported. So um yeah, I mean that's why I became a social worker, you know. Um yeah, I mean I have a sore spot. I have a soft spot in my heart for the little ones because they're abused so much, you know. When you, I mean, it's just sad when you hear about grown men having sex with 9-month-old babies. I'm like, what does a 9-month-old baby do for you? You know? And do you understand what kind of damage you have done to that child? Like, it's not even funny. It's crazy to me. So yeah. Um, thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. Thank you for the other men on the panel being supportive and, you know, how being allies and support. That's what it's about. We heal together. We all have trauma. Mine's may not be as much as yours, but we all heal together. And that's where we need to get back to this whack YouTube beef and stupidness that we deal with. It's not reality. It's so much pain in the world, and hurt people end up hurting people. And thank you, Mr. Joseph, for breaking that cycle and not becoming that, because most people who do abuse, when they don't get the healing, they become abusive. They become abusers and they become predators, you know? Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of stories of the kids I've worked with, and I didn't think I was going to make it as a social worker. I thought I was going to quit after my first week because it was too much. But, you know, I'm still here, still doing it. So thank you.
And Queen, I want to say like thank you to you, your husband, your other half, and definitely Mario and Kasheen, because every week when I was going through in that environment, and you guys listen, you gotta know like how much that meant for me, because people were not listening, and it felt like the same thing I was going through when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Where people were doing crazy thing in that environment and nobody was saying anything.
Yeah.
And abuse happened even as an adult. Like it still happens as adults, and there's a lot of people who are being abused. And it's like you can't turn to everybody, because there's people who wants to take the information and destroy you with your grief and your experience of abuse. But I want to thank Queen and her better half for always like having my back, and just to always encouraging me to like stand up for what's right and to talk and check in with me every week, because that's the best thing you can do for someone is just listen, don't fix, but just be there and be supportive, because a lot of times people get abused and nobody wants to hear it. And
Yeah.
that's the part that's crazy. Because
Mhm.
if nobody listened to me, I probably went ballistic in that place. Um, and
No,
it would have
you
been
wouldn't have.
pretty.
We wouldn't allow that to happen. I'd
Thank
have,
you. Thank you.
I'd have put you to sleep and threw you in the trunk and taken you somewhere. You know how the people get kidnapped? They put that rag over your mouth. That we would
Oh
have
yeah,
got you.
chlorophyll. The
We would have
chlorophyll.
we
Oh
would
yeah,
have
no
taken you.
chemical.
We would have taken you to the safe house. You'd have been fine. You'd have been fine. And then you would have made me go to jail because I would have went back and put my hands on somebody. So thank you. Thank you for not making me do time and needing bail bond money. Okay. I appreciate you.
Okay, you both social workers. I shouldn't be the one talking y'all down. Y'all should be talking me down. Okay? Mr. Wattz. Is he there?
Mr. Watts?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see.
And
Yeah, I'm
go
here.
ahead.
I'm
Go
here.
ahead,
I'm here.
Queen. Go ahead, Queen.
Oh, I was gonna say really quickly, I think it's very important to listen to kids. Like Stanley was saying, is one of my jobs I used to have to supervise visits with kids in the system. And there was a story that came out that I think it happened Midwest or somewhere where the father was losing custody of the kids. They were going with the mom. The mom had died. I think the dad, I don't know if the dad killed her, whatever, but her parents were getting the kids. It was the last visit before he lost parental rights. And the kids didn't want to go. It was like 3 kids. And they kept telling the grandmother, I don't want to go. We don't want to go. And then she was like, you have to go see your father. You have to go. And he was like, no, we don't want to go. And so the social worker who took the kids to the father's house got there with the kids. And she said, the dad came to the door and the kids ran inside, but she smelled kind of gas. And as she was gathering her stuff, she heard the door slammed and she heard screaming. And so when she got to the door, the dad had stabbed the kids and set the house on fire. But it, and then the reason why this story got so big in my job is because I used to do home visits with families. And so it got to the point where it's like, we don't think it's not safe, So, but I was saying that this to say is that, when kids are telling you that they're uncomfortable, you should not question them. You should support them and believe them and maybe go, okay, well, maybe we need to have the visit outside at a park where, or supervised or in a safe place, because the kids were adamant about not wanting to go. And now they ended up being killed by their father. And I think he like stabbed them several times. Yeah.
You know what I thought you were talking about, Queen? Because I thought the social worker outside of Chicago just got killed this month.
Yeah, no, it
Doing a
wasn't.
home
The
visit.
social worker didn't get killed. She got locked out of the house because she was grabbing stuff and the kids ran ahead of her.
No, this one got stabbed to death.
Yeah, no. But the story I was talking about.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was conflating. I thought that's the one you were talking about,
Mm-mm.
and I conflated the two. And I was like, wait a minute, the social worker got killed? Because I know that was just big news. So I was like, you guys do have a very serious job, you and Stanley. And like you said, some of these parents can't deal with their problems, and they just, they're just
Like
not.
I would immediately end the visit if the kids, because if the kids were going to see the parents and the kids ran to me and were jumping all over me, I would look at them and they would just be looking. They wouldn't say anything. And the parents is like, hey, come here. And I'm like, I think they're tired. I think we're gonna, end the visit, So I'm gonna take them home and, blah, blah, blah. So I wouldn't even question it. I would just immediately end it and say, let's go. I wouldn't ask the kid if they felt anything. you know, because 9 times out of 10, they were always so little, they didn't know how to communicate it. So I was just like, do you want ice cream? Yes, I want ice cream. Let's go get some, let's do something fun before I take you home. And then I would tell the foster parent what happened, or my supervisor. But yeah, you got to pay attention to these children.
Mr. Wattz, you got anything? Because we about to wrap. I got to go to work in the morning.
No, man. Great show. Wonderful learning opportunity. Anytime that I can come on these panels and I can take something for me to actually reflect on myself, I think is a great conversation. So I appreciate the opportunity. That's
Awesome.
all I got.
Any parting words? Because we about to shut it down.
Anything? No, man. This ain't about me today.
Yeah, I feel you. But we want to give everybody a chance to have their parting words.
Yeah,
it's a good show. I feel encouraged, and I'm glad you. Thank you for coming up and being there with us through the questions, whatever, getting anything out of it and adding to the conversation is very important that we get all these differing voices. And I agree with you. It was a great show.
Yeah, but shout out to Knowledge and Relationships, what you guys are doing over here. R'Shaun, Rico, another great show. Stanley, I appreciate being able to bounce some things off of you. I'm gonna just go ahead and get out the way, man. Because look, man, it's processing that needs to get done.
Put them babies to bed and get you some sleep.
It's hard to express what it is that I have going on in my head right now. So yeah, y'all be easy. I'm gonna go ahead and get out the way.
Glad we could get the information to you before you would ever need it, and I hope you never need it.
We're gonna pray.
Yeah, I hope and pray you never need it, but I'm glad we got it to you long before you ever need it. You don't want it. You ain't gonna do you no good after the fact. So thank you for coming up and showing up, brother. Thank you.
I wanna add one last statement. Be vigilant in your protection, because predators are vigilant in studying their prey. You have to be vigilant in your protection. And even if you come across as overprotective or whatever, be vigilant. You know what's a good well, it's more like a stalker, but You on Netflix. That's a very good series to watch about someone who is a predator but studies their prey to the point where they convince their prey of them liking them. You know what I mean? Like, they study them to the point where they know them better than they know themselves. And there are people out there who that's just who they are. They're predators, and they're just ready to pounce. I don't want to see none of my Black people in jail or whatever, but just be adamant and very vigilant about. It's just like that little, I don't know if little last story, that little Black kid who was kidnapped through a carjacking, and he sang gospel songs the whole time, and they returned him. He wouldn't stop singing church songs, and they took him back to where they picked him up at. So I just thought that was a funny way to end it. You know what I mean? Because it was a heavy topic.
Good night, Mr. Wattz. See you in the next one, sir. God bless. Any parting words, Mr. Stanley? And thank you again. Thank you for sharing your story. You the star of the hour. You shared a lot, but please give us your parting words. We'd be more than happy.
Oh man, I know we took a turn. I think it'll be cool to have another show where we could talk about abuse and dating, so we can really talk about this stuff, because it doesn't, it's a lot bigger, because men don't know they can talk. Men don't know that it is abuse. Like, I seen one of my male friends, he got hit by his girlfriend with a wrench. I don't know if you guys know what that stuff looks like. That thing is 20 pounds of metal. And for him to get hit in the back of the head, and I'm just like, dude, that's abuse. And he's like, no, this is what men are supposed to do. I'm like, no, but this is stuff, we talk about traditional people in the manosphere, they think about traditional, but that's also abuse is part of the tradition too.
Yeah, we're going to have more topics on this, and you're going to help us guide through it, not because of your victimization, but because of your expertise as a social worker. I'm not one. Our Sean's not one. We'll probably have you, Queen, and anybody else we know with any type of mental health, social worker type background to help us navigate the conversation to make sure that we're not, misguided or saying anything that, we don't know what we're saying. But yeah, this is an area that we want to explore, not to take advantage of, but to offer help and ideas and suggestions to people. So definitely, I don't know how soon we're going to pivot to it, but it won't be too long down the road. In the next week or 2 or 3, we're going to have a big whole stream. It'll be on, this subject, and I can't make you, but I'm going to sincerely press you and Queen to join us to help us navigate the conversation. So no, that is definitely going, because it's much needed.
And I'm down for it, so I'm here. I'm off this week, so you guys need me for tomorrow or something else, let me know.
It ain't gonna be tomorrow, okay? I promise you.
How you get anything else?
Huh?
How you get
you know what happened at work.
Oh, okay.
Hit me up. You know what happened over there. I'll tell you what happened. Okay.
Well, you have a good night, Mr. Joseph.
Oh, thank you. Hey, R'Shaun, thanks, man.
All right, Miss Queen.
No, thank you. Seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, we mean it. Any last words, Miss Queen?
What would you do for a Klondike bar right now?
Please.
I just want some ice cream in my bed. I'm at work. I just want some ice cream and go to bed. So that's my closing statement. Go have a scoop of your favorite ice cream. That's it, and chill. That's it. Just smile. It's so good.
All right. Well,
that's my closing statement.
Be safe with them babies, and you have a blessed night, please.
All right.
All right. Good night. All right, R'Shaun.
Folks.
That's it.
That's it, man.
I'll just take 2 minutes to say thank you guys for the final of the Red Pill, R'Shaun and Rico with the Red Pill Cultists. I hope, in spite of, we did get the first half of it out, but, what we talked about the second half was far more meaningful, more important. And we appreciate you guys who took this ride with us. It was unexpected, but we think it was some good information that was put out. And we hope that, that you would go ahead and share this message, because we think it's useful to somebody out there, maybe somebody in your family, somebody in your neighborhood, one of your friends, or just a young man in the neighborhood. And we got to talk about this more about our community for mental health in the manosphere and the man space. Thank you all. God bless. Good night.